Bienvenido and welcome everyone to the 2021 Association for Conservation Information Annual Conference. I'm your host, Lance Cherry. I'm the Chief of the Information and Education Division for the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish and your ACI Vice President. I'm sure many of you remember the last great conference we had in 2019. We all gathered in Savannah, Georgia to celebrate the best of the best during the awards dinner, which was outstanding. We raised a bunch of money for ACI at the auction banquet, and we learned to build better relationships, being a force for change, and sea turtles. That year, I invited everyone to join us in New Mexico as we set to ignite the R3 revolution. I couldn't have imagined what would take place, and I definitely could not have imagined that we would hold the reins of this conference for 2 consecutive years. During that time, I shared with everyone the similarities of R3 and marketing and communication strategies. I talked about how the terms recruitment and acquisition, retention and churn rate, reactivation, customer lapse, outcomes, and ROI were at the end of the day pretty much the same thing. I spoke on how the project management triangle played a role and how the adoption curve tracked with the R3 adoption models. And I promised this conference would be epic. And little did I know just how epic it would be. For all of us, 2020 came crashing in like a wrecking ball. The entire world came grinding to a halt with the news of COVID. And like so many of you, we scrambled to shift our own operations from a face-to-face world to a no-contact virtual world. Not surprising to me, conservation agencies rose to that challenge. We shifted services to online and found new ways to keep people engaged and passionate about hunting, fishing, outdoor recreation, and our natural resources. Like all of you, we saw a nice bump in participation across the entire country. And like you, we learned how important our own roles were within our agencies. Communication is the lifeblood of what we do, and communication is still the lifeline to the world. I am so very proud of each and every one of you. Proud of the work you do and the profession you have chosen. I'm proud that you have held steadfast in your purpose. I'm proud to have been a part of something much bigger than myself. And while I'm sincerely sorry we could not host the conference in person in my home state this or last year, I am still thrilled to have New Mexico serve as your host. My staff and I have worked extremely hard to ensure that the content of this conference will be packed full of valuable information, new ideas, and success stories that I hope you will find useful. And I'm confident that we pulled together a collection of some of the most inspiring people in the industry. At the end of the day, I hope you'll find this conference to be a testament to our resilience, because that alone will make this an epic success. Before we get started with everything here today, I just have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. For my panelists, my apologies to some of you that quickly got moved out of the panel view and into attendees, but I know where you are and I will pull you in when the time is correct. For those of you participating in the conference, should you have technical issues, please feel free to call, text, email, or contact me or any of my staff, and we'll help make sure that you stay connected. For this conference, you have some options. You can watch this on the Whova virtual platform. You can also get onto a Zoom meeting and watch this from the Zoom platform. I will say that all of our panels, all of our meetings, all of our sessions will be conducted primarily out of the Zoom side. And so probably for the most user-rich experience, I'd encourage you to take advantage of using your Zoom apps and just engaging with us. A couple other things I hope you noticed was that we have a contest set up. So whoever reaches the top of the leaderboard by engaging in the different challenges, and also a photo contest, whoever gets the most likes will find themselves in possession of one fantastic New Mexico Department of Game and Fish gift package loaded with a whole bunch of our branded promotional items. Things like our favorite double aluminum lined coffee mugs that we all live with in our hands, our trucks, and every place you see us. The plan is to announce those winners at the final session on Wednesday, the 28th. So get cracking. I did notice quite a few of you were engaging across the different community boards and are scoring your fair share of points. So competition is stiff, and I thank you for your participation. That at the end of the day is how we will stay connected and make this a much more rich conference, full of experiences and new friendships. I want to also encourage you to make sure to swing through our exhibitor booths. We've set aside a couple of times specifically to spend some time going through them, say, excuse me, say hello and like their pages and follow their stuff. I'm also pleased to announce that our attendance for this conference is 314. That's quite a number. It grew substantially since even just this morning. So I'm appreciative of all you who have taken some time out of your own schedules to join us. And then the last thing is this evening, as we have our virtual networking happy hour, well, it is a disappointment to not have it in the fashion that ACI is used to. The traditions that we have long set of staying up way past our bedtimes. This will still be a fantastic night of getting together. Rec Martinson works for the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish and is also one of our local musicians. He's going to come in and open our evening tonight. So I would encourage you to please jump on and come see Rex perform for us. And then we'll have a lot of time to enjoy your favorite beverage, get together and just talk. We did this last year for the virtual awards and it turned out to be a pretty good evening, and I expect the same. So without further ado, we will move into our next session. I'm going to bring in Matt Harlow. Matt Harlow is the engagement strategist for DJ CAHSS and Associates, and he's going to talk to us today about a social listening study. Matt just recently completed working, mostly completed. He's finishing up the final pieces on it, but finished working on such study with the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, and we're really excited about the work that he's done there. And we want to make sure to take an opportunity to share that with everyone. So we'll give it just a second as Matt slides over into our panel, and we will pass the reins to him as soon as he is ready. I'm going to have to ask you to unmute, Matt. That's the other trick that happens when I move you to the attendees, it automatically mutes you and you got to start over. So thank you for being patient with me.
No problem. Thanks, Lance. It's an honor to kick off such a great conference, and it's been great working with Lance and everyone on this project. Hang on a minute. I lost my advancing button. There we go. So just a quick special thanks to New Mexico for partnering with us, and AFWA and WISPR, because it was a multi-state grant. And if you're looking for the multi-state grant, the formal name of the grant is What is the Public Saying About Hunting and Hunters, and What Can We Do About It? So why is it that we care about social media? 74% of US adults use social media, and on average, they use 3 platforms apiece. So that's 744 million odd conversations. And you can't understand those you can't participate in those conversations until you understand them. And social listening contributes to that understanding. So we're going to show you what we've learned over the past, say 10 months. So first, real quick, what is social listening? So there's all those messages floating around in the ether from social media. Social listening gathers all those up, puts them in a database, and then you can make queries to that database if you have the right tool. And you can make 2 kinds of queries. You can make a content query that will pull up a particular post because of the content of that post, or you can make a source query that will pick up content based on the biography or the profile or however that particular piece of social media works of the the person or organization that posted it. So what we did was we developed hundreds of different queries all about hunting. And we looked at the time period between January 1st of 2017 and the end of 2020 in the US only. And we eliminated irrelevant posts. And this turned out to be one of the biggest challenges. I am sharing my screen, right? No, I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. Hang on. Luckily, you haven't missed anything yet. So we did, like I said, we did hundreds of queries. They were about hunting in 2017 through 2020 in the US, and we eliminated, and this turned out to be one of the biggest tasks, irrelevant posts about anything that contained the word hunt or hunting. So people named Hunt, video games have a lot of hunting in them, job hunting, apartment hunting, we had to eliminate all that. And then and now I got that same problem again, hang on. And then we did 3 source queries. The first was for individuals who self-identified as hunters. So their profile had the word hunting, hunter, hunters, bow hunter, bow hunters, bow hunting in it. People who identified as animal activists. They had words like animal lover, animal rights, animal activist in their profiles. And then a group of people we call the non-nons. Those were people who didn't identify as either of the above. And we plowed through hundreds, if not thousands of posts and reports and everything else about all these sort of people posting about hunting, and got a lot of reports and a lot of graphics, and you'll see some of that as we go through here. So just a quick warning first, social listening results are not survey results. It's a really small population. There's a lot of confusion with the use of words like hunt and hunter. A small tweak in the query will change the results a great deal. And people post with their own agendas, not necessarily with the truth in mind. So we've got all those issues. And then on top of that, because of Facebook's privacy settings, individual human beings who post in Facebook, their posts are not in this social listening process. So there are some issues, but we learned a ton. Some quick references, rather than putting citations on every slide, here are some of the things that we used to pull additional information beyond our social listening. And you'll find the numbers spread throughout the presentation to refer back to these. First thing we want to talk about is anti-hunting and pro-hunting posts. Anti-hunting and pro-hunting posts move through the social media landscape in very different ways. So hunter's posts are social in nature. You harvest an animal, you have a good day at the hunt, you post that for your friends to see. So individuals post these things to share them with their experiences and connections, and shared friends comment on those. So what happens is, let's say that Lance's next door neighbor and my next door neighbor, who have nothing to do with each other, both harvest an elk, and they post it on social media. Lance's neighbor's post will bump around in his contacts, and my neighbor's posts will bump around in her contacts, but the likelihood of those two things ever connecting are pretty small. So what happens is, each individual, his post or her post travels through a fairly small number of people, and those people might see it a fair number of times because your neighbor posts something and the person across the street comments on it and you see it again, and the person down the hall at work comments on it and you see it again. So you'll see those posts several times. Anti-hunting posts move an entirely different way. Anti-hunting posts are activist in nature. They're not social in nature at all. Their goal is to stop hunting. So they want to reach as many people as possible. So they use inflammatory words and inflammatory language, and we'll talk more about that later. They encourage reposting. So what happens is an individual, say that red dot, will post an anti-hunting post, and it goes out to a handful of people. Some of those people share or repost it, and it goes to their connections and their connections, and it will continue out and out and out. So what happens is it ripples out to a larger and larger number of people who see it once or twice each. So the posts go to a large number of people only once. So here's some examples of some of the anti-hunting organizations and how they work on this issue. So Ban the Hunt is an effort to ban fox hunting. And even though fox hunting is really not a big activity in the US, this is still a fairly active effort here. So in those 3 years, almost 500,000 people posted about Ban the Hunt. They use a lot of this cute or nature kind of image, and then they use this, and I think it's almost brilliant, this violent yet attractive logo that they have. And those are the sort of images they use to keep their posts rolling. They have a good hashtag, and they're super consistent about using it. If you look down in the word cloud, you can see how big Keep the Ban is in that word cloud. And they use Twitter. Twitter is the fountain of negative news. If you want to post something bad and get a lot of people to see it, Twitter is the place to put it. Ban trophy hunting. Ban trophy hunting is 100% on Twitter. It's 100% reposts. One person posted this, and since then it's reached 1.5 million people. And you can see how these little peaks appear in the volume of posts. So nothing will go on, nothing will go on. One person will post it, a bunch of people will repost it, it will disappear again. Cecil the Lion. Cecil the Lion was in 2015. There have been nearly 1 million posts about Cecil the Lion, but 300,000 of them were on that one day of that big spike, July 1st, 2015. But yet in 2019, there were still almost 65,000. And it's still the cover on the Humane Society homepage. But you can see again, if you look at the graph, one big spike, and then it comes down to almost nothing, but it's purring along consistently. How do anti-hunters post about hunting to make these things happen? So first of all, they use Twitter. Like I said, Twitter is the place to make negative news go viral. They encourage super actively reposting. They post stories that are likely to be shared. They're incendiary, they're interesting, they might involve famous people, they're in line with the views of the audience they're sharing them with. They use incendiary words like trophy and kill and murder and extinction. And they use incendiary images, images that focus on dead animals, grip and grins. And I know we've all done it. We've had friends that do it. We see them all the time. We like them ourselves, but grip and grins fuel the anti-hunting movement's needs for images. Images that emphasize death, where you can see the bullet holes or arrows or blood or lulling tongues. Those are the kind of images that work in this space. So if we are going to learn from them to post pro-hunting posts where they use Twitter, we need to use everything. And the difference is we're going to have to concentrate on positive messages They concentrate on negative messages, so Twitter's the place to be. If we're going to be out there with positive messages and we want to reach a lot of people, we're going to need to use a lot of channels. They encourage reposting, we're going to have to encourage reposting. They post stories that are likely to be shared, we're going to have to do the same. Ours still need to be interesting, they need to be in line with the views of our audience, but instead of being incendiary, they need to talk about how hunting benefits non-hunters and society. And the reason is the sort of social, hey, look, my son killed his first buck, my daughter killed her first turkey, or I just had a good day in the field with my wife, any of those sort of things are not interesting to hundreds of thousands and millions of people. They're interesting to the people that know you. So we're going to have to find things that are interesting on a higher level. Where they use incendiary words, we have to stay away from those incendiary words. Trophy, I wish we would all forget the word trophy. Say big, say mature, but don't say the word trophy, because people who want to hear it hear that that means kill it, hang it on the wall, and don't eat it. Bad word. The word kill, referring to hunting as a sport or recreation. Those are the sorts of things that we don't want to use. We want to move away from those images that focus on dead animals and move toward it. You can have a harvest in a photo. It just shouldn't be a photo of the harvest. It should be a photo of people that happens to contain the harvest. So we looked everywhere to find a post that used social media the way we'd like to see social media used to go viral, and we couldn't find one, so we had to invent one. So here's a post about hunting as a population control tool. Those are the sorts of things, preventing highway accidents, things of that nature, we think are the things that have a chance to go viral. So after we looked at that, we looked at how different groups of people post about hunting. So we looked at self-identity. We've talked about that a little. We'll talk about it more. We looked at gender. We looked at generation, and we looked at location. We'll see some information about all of those things. So first, self-identity. Just like before, we did the hunters, the animal activists, and the non-nons. So between 2017 and 2020, 2.8 million hunting posts were made by people who branded themselves as hunters. Those posts reached 7 million people. So on the average, about 2.5 people saw each post. The animal activists only posted 79,000 times in that same window of time. They reached 630,000 people, so a lot less people, but yet more people per post. And the other thing you need to remember is that hunting posts that are just positive social hunting posts, they kind of never disappear, right? You might be scouting, you're hunting different animals in different seasons, etc. So they're just out there, they're humming along, they'll peak for deer season, things like that. But the animal activist posts, they disappear and then they pop up huge, and then they'll go along and they'll pop up huge again. So that makes it feel like a lot more people are seeing it, but what's really happening is a lot more people are seeing it in a particular week or month. This was interesting to me. When you look at the statistics about the people posting them, hunters skew a little bit on the young side. You see our big peak in the chart there at 25 to 34. And then if you look at animal activists, they skew much older. We've got our peak in the chart down there at 55 to 64. So that was interesting to see. The gender of the posters, the hunter posts tend to skew male. The animal activist posts tend to skew female. Now remember, Facebook's out of these measurements. So the hunters 60% of the hunters used Instagram, and you can see there Twitter and blogs and Pinterest across the bottom. Then the anti-hunters, Twitter by a landslide, 77% Twitter. The other thing that was interesting is if you look at the hashtags. So if you look at the first hashtags there on the left, you can see that they're pretty much what you expect. They're about hunting. And if you look at the animal activist hashtags, they make sense too. They're about animal rights, they're about vegetarianism, things like that. But when you look at the one on the lower left, those are the people who don't consider themselves animal activists or hunt, or don't label themselves as animal activists or hunters. And you can see how similar they are to the hunters. So we believe one of the things that's going on is a lot of people who hunt don't label themselves in their profiles as hunters, either because of social pressure, or maybe it's just because other parts of their life are more important to them. Maybe they label themselves as fathers or mothers or grandparents or something else that takes the lead for them, something professional, but they still obviously are hunters and tend to post from a hashtag standpoint, very much like the people who label themselves hunters. The other thing, this is the same hashtags, but in quantity order. And the thing that's interesting when you look at that is, first of all, what's theirs interesting, sure. But the fact that the number 5 animal activist hashtag is repost shows you again how important reposting is to the effort that they are undertaking to spread the word for their cause. Gender, so now we're going to look at gender. So these are people who call themselves hunters, and of the people who call themselves hunters, 31% are female, 69% are male. The female group skews young adult. So you can see that peak there between 25 and 30, and the male group skews much older. So again, our theory, we can't prove these things. The female population there is very much a result of kind of the R3 movement, and we're still fighting the traditional boomers in the age curve on the male side. Again, our theory. When you look at hashtags, the female hashtags also tend to reflect that R3 sort of things, what gets you outdoors, women who hunt, along with a lot of the other traditional hashtags. And then you can see on the male side, it's very much labeling the sort of hunting you're doing, what hunting you're doing, things of that nature. Moving on to generations. This is how we define the generations. We were just sharing that because everybody defines them a little differently. Our filters define them this way. So when you look at the 4 generations, one of the things that becomes very evident is the younger you get, the less likely you are to use Facebook and the more likely you are to use YouTube. So you might want to think about that when you're doing your outreach, when you're doing your R3 and you're after the millennials and the Gen Zs. Facebook may not be the place to be. Also, when you look, the younger you get, the more you use social media. I know that's not any news to anybody, but when we find data, we share it. This is the gender mix of posts across the generations. And I thought this was really interesting, and I think R3 needs to take a lot of credit for this as well. But the younger you get, the more female the voice is. 8.3% of the people posting about hunting that are boomers are female, and 37% of the people that are posting about hunting that are Gen Z are female. So that was interesting. When you look at hashtags again, the baby boomers, very traditional labels, and then the younger they get, the more R3 oriented some of the hashtags will get. And when we say R3 oriented, we mean the sort of hashtags that the R3 organization is encouraging people to post. Another thing we did is we looked at market sizes. So if you look at the US, the largest markets 1 through 12, so the biggest markets, contain a third of the US population, but they generate 16% of the posts about hunting that are posted by hunters. When you move to the medium-sized markets, that's markets 13 through 45, they also contain a third of the US population, but they post a third of the posts. So that one makes sense, right? Then when you go to the small markets, they have to make up the difference for the large markets. So markets 46 through 210. So look how many places that is in comparison, represent another 43% or 34% of the US population and generate almost 500,000 posts, or 48%. So you're 3 times as likely to post about hunting on social media if you live in markets 46 through 210 as you are in markets 1 through 12. So you can't necessarily say that means you're 3 times as likely to hunt, but it certainly, we can say you're 3 times as likely to post about it on social media. When you look at the gender of those posters, the smaller the market size gets, the less female the voice of the posters becomes as well, people who post posters. If you think this is great, you should wait for the book. Cindy Longmire and I did a lot of the work on this. The report we're still working on. It's got things in it like how anti-hunters post about hunting that we saw here a little bit, how hunters post about hunting, what social media is right for you, and a lot of really practical social media tips for state agencies. I'm going to say that's a third to a half of the report. So that we hope it's really useful. It's kind of a reference manual more than a novel. You wouldn't want to read it cover to cover, but if you want to go after a certain market niche or learn about a certain social media channel, I think it'll be really informative for you. Also, we have an application in this year for a multi-state grant with ACI, and it's about social listening for state agencies. So what we've done is, or what we hope to do, is we're going to create a social media filter for every state in the union, and then every 2 weeks deliver the report on what's happened, who's posted what about your state agency to you for a year. And then at the end of the year, we'll look back at those posts and see what we can learn about trends. So hang on a second. And we'll see here. Oh, we got someone Q&A'd. Is the book? Yes, the book will definitely be only a PDF. I doubt that anyone prints it anywhere. Let's see, did anybody else? So any other questions, any thoughts, anything at all?
And for those of you in attendance, if you want to speak up as opposed to sign in, all you need to do is virtually raise your hand and I can patch your audio in. Okay, Jennifer, you're allowed to speak.
Well, goodness, I knew you had a lot of power, Lance, but I didn't know you had that kind of power. This is super interesting to me, Matt, so thanks for doing a presentation on it. But I was wondering if those were across all platforms, the statistics were, or was it just one platform, or how?
Across all platforms other than individuals on Facebook. Got it.
And then a follow-up to, yes, the project that you said was coming up for hopefully funding next year. That's a really exciting thing that I'm hoping to get through that approval process. But if anybody has any ideas for projects like that for ACI to write grants for, please let us know.
one of the things that was really frustrating about this year's project is the word hunting is such a multifaceted word, right? I can say I'm hunting for an apartment, I lost my shoe and I'm hunting for it. So it's really hard to zone in. One of the things that we're hoping to see next year, again, assuming that grant gets written, because the individual fish and game agencies have distinct names, we should be able to zoom into a much better quality of posts. Okay, so we'll jump over here to the Q&A. I'm wondering, do we have anything taking note of what is spurring anti-hunters to post these sorts of imagery in general? I believe this is strictly a belief based in no fact whatsoever. It's an activity of opportunity. They believe in a cause, and then they see a picture of a hunter with an elephant or a fox hunt, or they literally belong to organizations and it's part of their either volunteer or professional job to generate this kind of buzz. But we don't know that. How do we get a list? How do we get on the list for the year-long social media info for the states? So if we get it, we hope to do all 50 states. And our plan is we'll do all 50 states, but then we'll lump the reports together into the AFO regions. I would say if you want to be sure to be on the mailing list, Ryan, just shoot me an email, matt@djcase.com, and I will make a note to get you on there, and then you can breathlessly wait with me to see if they approve the grant. You bet. That Ryan thanked me.
Okay, Matt, looks like the questions. I'll give it a second more in case anybody else has one pop in their head.
Sure. It was really interesting. It was much more difficult than I thought it would be. And I guess we had not thought about the multifaceted nature of some of the words that we were surfing for.
Okay, well, thank you for presenting that to us. We're really excited about the project in New Mexico, and it's something that we definitely plan on using as we move forward within our own social media strategies. And thank you for being here, Matt.
You bet. Thank you, Lance. I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference.
Okay, next up today, we have Joanne Martonik. She's the Senior State Marketing Manager for the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. And she's here today to provide us an update. Always great stuff coming from RBFF, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Joanne.
Great, thanks, Lance. Just give me 1 second to share my screen. All right, well, thank you very much, Lance. As he said, I'm Joanne Martonik, Senior State Marketing Manager with RBFF. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of time today to go over some of the updates we have in our resources and research. So I'll give an update on participation, a little bit on our Take Me Fishing, Get On Board campaign, some state agency successes, and then a bunch of other resources we have. So every year we partner with the Outdoor Foundation to do research on the participation numbers of people in the US 6 and over that participate in fishing. Last year in 2020, we saw 55 million people participated, and this is up from 50 million in 2019. We also saw a lot of growth in some of our key targets. There was 13.5 million youth went fishing, and that's the highest rate that we've seen since 2007. 19.7 million females went fishing, and that's up the highest level recorded to date. And females make up 36% of all anglers, and that's also up from 32% in 2008. We've also seen Hispanic participation double since 2008 or 2007 to 4.8 million. And we now have 3.1 million African-American participants. Some other good news is that there were a lot of new and reactivated anglers in 2020. There were 4.4 million new people tried out fishing for the first time, and 9 million people came back to the sport. And I think we all know that there was a lot of increases because of COVID. People could get outside and get outside, social distance, and have a safe time with friends and family. Unfortunately, we're still losing anglers. We saw, while there was 13.4 million people who either started or came back, we saw 8.8 million people leave. So as a whole, we all need to look at those retention efforts to keep those people coming back year after year. This slide is not from the special report on fishing, but it's from a research study NMMA did about boating in 2020. And boat sales reached an all-time high, highest in 13 years. And also there was about 100,000 people who purchased their very first boat last year. So I think most of you probably know that RBFF has a national campaign through Take Me Fishing, and we launched it as a Get On Board campaign last year and just enhanced it this year with some tweaks on messaging. So last year, we really focused on getting outside and mental health and wellness. This year, we kind of tweaked it a little bit to get more of be yourself on the water. We thought this was a more welcoming and more diverse to get people to just be their authentic selves. Anyone can be out on the water and do what they want to do. Our target audience is active social families. And so this is young families who enjoy being in the outdoors with their friends and family. The active social family group made up 39% of those new anglers we saw in 2020. And 41% of them are women and 18% Hispanics. So we're kind of focusing on women and Hispanics like we always do, but then even a more diverse audience as well. There's also a lot of growth potential in this area. There's potential for 22.3 million new anglers and 28.5 million new boaters in the active social family target audience. We do a lot of different tactics for Get On Board in our Take Me Fishing campaign. We use video and streaming and digital ads and search engine marketing.
It is time for Fishing Hole, sponsored by TakeMeFishing.org.
You know, Joe, I always want to learn more about fishing and boating.
Yes,
You know.
I got the perfect website for you then.
Tell me.
It's right there on the HUD,
Oh!
TakeMeFishing.org.
Sorry about that. I accidentally hit play a little too soon. We have a partnership with Disney, and we work with them to have integrated content. And one of the things we did this year with ABC was we partnered on the show Holy Moly, which is a kind of a cross between mini golf and Wipeout. And so we looked at this to reach a much broader audience than we have in the past, and to kind of put fishing into more of a culture and help change preconceived notions about fishing. So I'm just going to play it once more now that you know what it is. So this is just one clip of the several episodes. The fishing hole will be on Holy Moly.
It is time for
Well,
It is time for Fishing Hole, sponsored by TakeMeFishing.org.
You know, Joe, I always want to learn more about fishing and boating.
Yes,
You know.
I got the perfect website for you then.
Tell me.
It's right there on the HUD,
Oh.
TakeMeFishing.org.
all right. So we're excited about this new partnership. It's definitely something very different that we haven't done in the past. We also use social media. We focus a lot more on Facebook and Instagram, but new this year, we are dabbling into TikTok. So we just started that recently, and we hope to have some good information about how this did sooner than later. We also have lots of integrated partnerships where we work with a group to have customized content and something new. So we work with BuzzFeed, and one of their content creators, Curly, went fishing for the first time, recorded the process, and made a pretty funny video about it. And we've also have ads on the BuzzFeed website, and I'm sorry, everything's advancing on its own. So when I'm spending too much time, I think I missed unchecking the box for it to not advance on their own. So bear with me. So also on BuzzFeed, we have shared content with them on social media and some videos that they call buzz cuts based around fishing. And so all of these partnerships and using TikTok is really just our way of trying to reach more people and reach a more diverse audience than we have had in the past. So some state agency successes. We give out grant funding every year for R3 projects. And recently, over the past few weeks, we've been promoting the case studies from 2020, from projects from 2020. So I'm just going to go over a few. I'll kind of give an overview, and you can see some of the results on the screen here. And we have case studies for each one that we've emailed out. They're on our website, so you can go to those for more information and results. So Virginia did a cool project where they worked with responsive management to do focus groups on the new anglers and reactivated anglers from last year to kind of learn more about who they are, why they fished, barriers they faced. And they've been able to use that information to tailor their marketing messages in the future. So they'll be able to use what they learned from the focus groups to more actively reach anglers and boaters. Minnesota used geofencing for the first time as an extra layer on their marketing campaigns that they kind of have been expanding every year. They originally were going to have geofencing based around events, but they had to change it up since events were canceled, and they did geofencing around households and demographics. They also tested several different messaging. They tried a get your license message, a food recipe message, and a learn how message. And for them, it worked out that the get your license message was the most well received and received the most engagement. Tennessee used digital marketing and geofencing to reach people close to bodies of water in Nashville and Chattanooga. So they wanted to increase their engagement in previously underserved and diverse communities. And so they, with their targeted marketing and geofencing, they were able to reach more people and increase participation. Iowa focused their work on Hispanic women in urban areas. So they used digital ads and in both English and Spanish radio ads that push people to a landing page on their website with a lot more information and tips and how-to videos. And then they retargeted these people later with a buy your license message. Now, these next few, we've actually haven't released the case studies on. We will be releasing these in the next few weeks. So this is some new information. Mississippi launched a campaign to increase retention and reactivation of anglers. They worked to promote fishing near state lakes and state parks as local fishing opportunities. They also used lookalike audiences from their current anglers to target messages to get those people out fishing and boating as well. And their messages were based around getting your fishing license or getting a state lake park permits or registering your boat. Nebraska did a unique project where they tried to create a predictive and preventative model to try to see if they could identify likely to lapse anglers and then target them with specific messaging to try to prevent them from lapsing. That way they can do more targeted efforts currently to retain anglers rather than reactivate them later down the road. One more case study that hasn't been released yet is Maryland's English and Spanish digital ad campaign. A little bit similar to Iowa, they had ads in both Spanish and English. One very cool thing that was able to stem from this project is that they were able to translate their license system into Spanish so that they could point their Spanish ads to the Spanish license system. And then also stemming from that, their whole agency created a new Spanish customer service process to be able to more help people, Spanish speakers buy their license. So again, some of these last few will release the case studies in the coming weeks, but some of them are already out and posted online. We have a lot more resources, and this is something we're kind of trying to update on a regular basis. Here are just some of them, which I'll go through really quickly, but we have even more online resources that we think can help state agencies in their marketing efforts. This first one, 10 steps to create a digital marketing campaign, excuse me. It's new, we just released it recently, and this was based off of a multi-state conservation grant, where we had 7 states last year and 1 state this year implement digital marketing campaigns. They all did use different tactics, but they all saw great successes. And the toolkit takes you through all the steps that they took and gives you examples from states on the various steps. There's also an area of where the states have given advice to other states trying to implement a campaign for the first time, or just expanding your campaign. So it's a lot of really good information. There's also case studies under their results. One of my favorite things about this is they've also given permission for other states to use all the creative assets that they put together. So here's a few examples of some of the creative that these states used. It is all on our photo library. So you can go there, you can download it, you can steal images or messaging, or maybe it'll just help if you think of some new ideas that you haven't implemented yet. So highly recommend checking out these new images and messaging. Earlier this year, we put together a retention resource to help industry and state agencies target all the new people who started last year and bring them back to the sport this year. So we have email templates, retention messaging, tool checklists, infographics, social posts, and all of these were created to be either customized. You can change the color of the messaging or change the image if you want to use the get on board look and feel. You can also co-brand them with your agency's logo, and they're all on a platform that you can connect with the customer service, and they will help you co-brand it or customize if you need help or just don't have the time but want to use it. So we have some support there to help you utilize these assets if that's something you're interested in. I mentioned our photo library earlier. This has a lot of pictures of families out fishing and boating. if you have not had a chance to check these out, I recommend that you do. There's hundreds of pictures that you can choose from if you're looking, if you need some more imagery for any of your work. Here's a few more examples as well. And we will be adding more pictures soon. So we'll send out an email once those are added. We held a photo shoot recently outside Minneapolis to get even more images. And I want to thank Minnesota DNR for their help with that, because they definitely lent us a big hand in putting that together. One of the things we focused on that photo shoot was having several different families there that went fishing and boating, but at the same time, we worked to have new types of images that we don't currently have. Like, for example, we showed more crossover activities. So you'll see images of people camping or biking along with fishing and boating. So we tried to make it a bit more all encompassing. We have a bunch of videos on YouTube, and all these are easily shareable. We add videos to these all the time. We add videos to the YouTube page all the time. A lot are geared towards more beginner information. So if you're looking for stuff to send to some of your new anglers, please feel free to share these videos. You can embed them on your website or social media. They're here to help you guys use those and provide content. We're more than happy if you want to add your logo on the end card, so it looks more like a joint effort. We're happy to help with that as well. We also have quarterly webinars. This is a list of some of the ones we've had in the past few years. We work to have state agencies present a lot of these so we can all learn from each other and what's happening. Our next webinar is going to be in late August about our boat registration reactivation program. That is another partnership we have with state agencies. Currently, we work with about 18 states to send letters direct mail letters to lapsed boat registrants to remind them to renew their registration. But what a lot of this webinar is also going to be about is some new tactics that were used this past year. Tennessee used Facebook ads to target lapsed boaters, and Texas sent follow-up emails. So we're going to be presenting how they did that, the results, and some new changes for next year to hopefully get more states to be able to partner with us on boat registration reactivation. We also do a bunch of research to help with our campaign and how we take it, and which also is there to help you guys with your marketing as well. We create infographics or one-pagers that you can more easily take in the information than those 50-page detailed reports. So this first one is about the special report on fishing, which I mentioned earlier. The second one, 10 facts about America's newest anglers and boaters. We did this towards the end of last year. We did a webinar on it, and we presented about it at the workshop. And that was just learning more about the anglers that joined last year, what their motivations, any constraints they had, if they plan to fish again. And this next one is about multicultural and audiences and increasing participation there. And last but certainly not least is our state marketing workshop. It's normally in person. It was virtual earlier this year, and next year we are going to create a hybrid version. So for everyone who will be there and wants to come in person, it'll be in Dallas, February 15th to 17th, and we'll have a virtual component on the 15th to the 17th as well. So lots more information to come, but mark your calendars now. We'll be sending out more information in the coming months. If you missed this year's workshop this past February, we did record everything. So if you missed it or just want to revisit anything, you can find all presentations, recordings of the presentations and the slides on our website. So it's a lot of information, but I do want to say, I guess we are always looking to provide more resources and help you all with your marketing efforts. So if you guys have any suggestions of things you think that would be helpful for everybody, please let me know. That's something we always look for. Or if you have some success stories, we'd love to share what you all do with everybody else so we can all learn from each other and increase fishing and boating participation together. So that's what I had. I'll stop. Okay. Were there any questions on any of that? Sorry, give me 1 second to read through some of this chat. All right, I don't really see any questions. So one of the questions is about the fishing numbers were reflective across the country. Yes, this was across the country for participants 6 and up. All right, I think that looks like that's it. Does anyone have any other questions?
Well, thank you, Joanne. That was a very good presentation, and I appreciate you stepping in for us today.
Thank you. Pleased to be here and excited for the rest of the conference. Thanks.
Okay, next up, we're going to have Charles Evans, but we all know him as Swanny. Swanny is the Director of Research and Partnerships for the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports. We'll give him a second to connect in here.
I'm here.
Hey, Swanny, glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Lance. Let's see if I can share my screen really quick. Look at that. I'm even on there. All right, Lance, are we good to go? Can you see everything?
I can see everything. You're good to go.
Perfect. Thanks, sir. As Lance mentioned, I'm Swanny Evans. I'm the Director of Research and Partnerships for the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports. I really appreciate the opportunity to jump on here and give kind of an organizational update for y'all. We're going to do a quick overview. Then we're going to look at a few resources that we have out there that might be relevant to this group and take any questions if we have time at that point. So with that, let's get started here. I know Lance mentioned that the majority of people on this call are probably familiar with the council, but just in the event that we have some that aren't, I did want to go over who we are and what we're about. So we were founded in 2009. You can see our vision, purpose, and mission up here. Our mission is to facilitate the promotion and growth of hunting and the shooting sports and the education on the contribution of the public on the contributions that hunters and shooters make towards wildlife conservation. So what does that mean? Well, since its founding, the council has been one of the driving forces behind R3 around the country, working at the national level, but also with many of the regional associations and organizations like ACI. The council was a chair on the plan development work group for the National Hunting and Shooting Sports Action Plan. Many of you are probably familiar with it, but if you're not, that was the plan that was put together in 2016 to define the strategies and actions necessary to increase hunting and shooting sports participation, diversify that participation, and of course, increase public support for those activities. So what does that look like from around that time that that plan was released until now? Well, what we've seen is that in 2015, the first R3 position came on board, state level R3 position under the direction of the National Hunting and Shooting Sports Action Plan. And Then once we progress to last year, 2020, we can see that R3 capacity across the country has substantially increased. So these are just the agency positions that are out there. Many NGOs and industry organizations as well have either created R3 positions or repurposed an entire or portion of existing positions to work on what we call R3, which I know you're all familiar with. Lance was talking about it at the beginning, and it sounds like last year it was quite the topic as well for ACI. So we've seen this substantial increase in R3 capacity. R3 has kind of become a household name. The council has certainly played a role in that, as well as ACI and RBFF and many other organizations. And alongside that, we've also seen a lot of what we might consider progress when it comes to participation numbers. You saw the numbers that were just presented prior to this on angling and boating. This is a quick look into some of the hunting participation, hunting license sales numbers rather. And this breaks down a survey that we did with Southwick and Associates looking at license sale data from 2019 to 2020. You can find this on our website there at that link, but it's just CAHSS.org. And that's our COVID-19 and hunting study that we put out. And what we saw, as many of you are already familiar, is we saw license sales go up substantially in all regions across the US, and then in resident and even non-resident sales as well. We also know that from other data that we have, we know that 18 to 44-year-olds drove the growth. We know that new recruits went up substantially in here, and females were up 12% over the previous year. So this is all really good news. We saw extreme participation increases in the shooting sports as well, and an increase in diversification of participants. We saw all sorts of people from different backgrounds getting into these activities. So we've seen a huge increase in the R3 capacity around the country. We've seen this big increase in participation, interest, and we're headed in a really positive direction. With this increase in capacity around the country, the increase in participation though, there's been this huge increase in demand for council services. And the council, at least until just recently, has not increased its capacity accordingly. So the council's done an excellent job over the years of making R3 a household name, working on state R3 workshops at the regional level, national level, et cetera. But we are working on ramping up our capacity. And if you know anything about us, you'll know that these are all new faces. In fact, I'm the longest standing member of the council here, and I started in, I believe it was October and November of 2020. Of course, I was very familiar with the council. I've been working on R3 since 2015, and always looked to the council for direction, worked on many committees with them, and very impressed by the work that they've done in the past. And I'm really excited about where we're headed now. So this is our brand new council team, and we'll start with Dr. Stephen Leith here. He is our new executive director. John Frampton, the previous head of the council, retired at the end of 2020, and Dr. Stephen Leith stepped in. And he, if you haven't met him yet, I'm sure you'll meet him very soon, especially as we return to in-person travel. But he was previously the president at Auburn University. Before that, he was the president at Iowa State University, the VP of the University of North Carolina system. So he's a long history in the sciences and academia and working at a very high level, but he's also very passionate about conservation, about hunting and the shooting sports. He's on the board for Boone and Crockett. He has consulted with many industry organizations that are in that hunting and shooting sports space. And I can tell you from working with him over the past few months that we are in very good hands. And I'm really excited about where he is taking the council. So after that, we'll jump over to Tanaya Befkey. Many of you are probably familiar with Tanaya. She was the R3 coordinator in South Dakota She was a member of the National R3 Implementation Work Group. We'll go into what that was a little bit later. She's on the AFWA DEI committee, extremely innovative thinker. She just came on board with us a few months ago. Really excited to have her, and looking forward to working with her even more. And then we have, last but not least, let me see if I can move out of the way here. We have Haley Faith. She is our program associate. She's managing pretty much all of the day-to-day operations, working on the clearinghouse that we'll talk about in a little bit, working on the community, keeping everything headed in the right direction. She's been doing an awesome job. So all of our contact information is up there, but I'll put it up at the end as well. All right, so we have this new leadership. We've got new staff. I'm really excited about this team. I'm looking forward to working on this increased demand that we just talked about, and ramping up what the council is able to provide to the community. So with that, we had a lot of strategic planning meetings with the council board of directors, the executive committee, council staff. And I just wanted to give you a quick idea of where we're headed. You know, we get a lot of new questions about the new team. What's the council going to do now? So I wanted to address that really quick. We are going to continue to facilitate and provide all previous services that the council's done in the past. So we're still going to engage in state R3 workshops. If you need help with one, you want us to attend one, let us know. We're all in on that. We're still going to engage in the regional committees, work with the federal agencies as well, provide the services like the R3 community and the clearinghouse that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Nothing that the council's done previously is going away, but we are, based on feedback from the community, from all of you, and from our board, we are going to ramp up our efforts and increase emphasis in several areas. Those include new partnerships, maybe some non-endemic partners, getting outside of our sphere a little bit. That includes marketing, ramping up our efforts surrounding research with marketing resources that are available. Certainly diversity, equity, and inclusion is definitely one of our guiding pillars. And we are excited about not only increasing participation, but also diversifying our participant base. That is equally, if not more important to the future of hunting and shooting sports. And then we're going to work on we hope to partner with RBFF and other organizations on some training for new R3 professionals and existing professionals. Maybe do some trainings of our own alongside the National R3 Symposium. And then we've seen this massive increase in demand for readily available in a timely manner research and data that's going to let the on-the-ground practitioner and the people at the higher levels make the decisions that need to be made to make sure that we're moving forward and headed in a positive direction in R3. And last but not least, we have traditionally, if you look back at the history of the council, of course, we've always engaged in shooting sports, but maybe not as much in that realm as we have hunting. So we are going to ramp up our efforts with industry engagement with shooting sports, and we're really looking forward to tackling that. All right, we're going to highlight just some resources that might be relevant to this group. You know, we've got a lot of stuff going on at the council. I'm excited to tell everybody more about it down the road, but wanted to highlight a few things in the limited time that we have here today that might be of interest to you. And it's all going to be found on the nationalr3community.org. So this website will take you to 3 different resources: the National R3 Community, which is our online community that we'll talk about; the National R3 Clearinghouse, which is a repository of R3 resources; and then the R3 topic guides. So let's dive into each one of those really quick here. Okay, the National R3 Community. Some of you, if you've been involved in ACI for a while, might be familiar with it because, in fact, in 2017, I believe it won an ACI award, the Online Community Engagement Award. It's really exciting. This community got kicked off a few years before that and has grown substantially. It now has over 2,900 professionals in there. And this is kind of we'll call it the social media of R3, if you will. You've got everything from Lance posting events like today's event in there. We've got an event schedule. If you're hosting something, please post it up in there. We've got just general conversations and idea sharing, brainstorming. We have people posting articles from the Onion. So all sorts of entertaining things. But in the next few years, we're really looking at increasing engagement. Haley Faith has been working on this a lot. She's doing a Takeover Tuesday. If you have exciting things that you want to share, please join the R3 community. Join the rest of the 2,900 on there. If you're already a member, but you haven't been posting a lot, jump in there and share what you got going on. We are excited about ramping up engagement. I know it's always been a resource for me prior to working for the council, and I look forward to seeing that resource capitalized on and increasing engagement in there. So sign up, post, or if you just want to, get in there and creep around a little bit, you can do that too. But we really encourage you to post new and exciting information or questions that you might have for our other R3 professionals. Okay, so that was the online community, and this is the National R3 Clearinghouse. So there's been a need for a central repository of information, and it's long been sought after in the R3 community. It was even documented, I think in 2018, as one of the top 5 needs in angling and boating R3 efforts, actually through a special task force that AFWA put together. So this group that I mentioned earlier, the National R3 Implementation Work Group, we'll call them IWG for short, that many of you are probably familiar with, but if you're not, it was convened in 2018 by the council. It was made up of leaders in the R3 community from agency, NGO, industry, and it was focused on furthering the implementation of the National Hunting and Shooting Sports Action Plan. So this need for a clearinghouse was something that was identified as a priority also by that group. And they took it on and actually developed it. So it was designed by the end user, by the IWG, and all of the resources and assets in there were put together to provide this central repository for hunting, recreational target shooting, angling, boating, and other outdoor recreation materials to improve information sharing and cooperation and communication among stakeholders. So what is the clearinghouse? I told you it's a central repository. What does that really mean? Well, it's got 1,300 assets in it right now. It's just a massive asset bank. And there's all sorts of materials, from a pile of photos. I know Eddie Hernan, who's probably on here right now in Virginia, he was working on a multi-state conservation grant with the Northeast Regional Association. Well, they've actually uploaded all of the photos that they collected as part of that grant for a community resource here. So there's a bunch of photos in there. You'll see in the background right here that you have a bunch of the RBFF case studies that were just referenced. They're in there. Responsive Management just uploaded a bunch of their past research. So this is something for everybody. It was designed by the community, for the community. And in fact, it's meant to be used and updated by the community as well. We manage it. Haley manages the back-end processes. So if you have any questions about it, of course you can reach out to me, but she's probably going to send you right over to her after we get done talking, because she knows the most about it and is the one that manages everything when you go to upload it. So you can get on there through nationalr3community.org, and you can upload any assets that you might have, photos that you want to share with the community that you think might be helpful, past research, case studies, toolkits, whatever it is. We want it on there if you think it would be relevant and it would help others that are working in this space. So please feel free to use it. It's not just hunting and shooting sports. We collaborated with RBFF on this. We collaborated with AFWA. We want everybody to dive in and embrace it. So it's just getting started. It was just released at the beginning of this year. So give us time to get more assets in there, but please upload, download whatever you need, check it out. You can go through and search by filters, search by R3 topic. And if you have a lot for your organization, we can even do an organization collection for you. So something to keep in mind that I think is probably going to be one of the most useful resources that we talk about today in the long term. All right. Last but not least, we have the R3 topic guides that we mentioned that are on that national r3community.org. So these were another product of the IWG, and we've got all sorts of guidance that came out of the sub-work groups that were part of that group on helping people engage, collaborative efforts, mentoring programs, et cetera. So we've got a statewide collaborations document in there that breaks down state structures and gives you examples and considerations and the benefits and the drawbacks of different organizational structures for your statewide collaboration. There's a mentoring self-assessment. There is an organizational culture piece of it. And then maybe most interesting to this group, there is a marketing component. So you'll see, right, let's see if I can point the right direction. Yep, right there. Marketing. So if you click on that button when you're in there, it'll take you to a page where it's got a breakdown of all of these different components: the awareness, partnerships, retention, selling license, licensing system considerations. The marketing group put a lot of work into that. It's got a lot of material in there, and we're really excited to share that with everybody. So I think that's what we've got on the resources for today. I won't take up too much more time. I do want to mention that with all of these resources, especially the Clearinghouse, we want feedback. Do you have trouble uploading? Is it unclear where things are? Do you have suggestions for improvement, for making the content more digestible, making it easier to navigate? Whatever it is, we want to hear from you. So if you have suggestions, feel free to reach out to any of us. This national r3community.org, this website will continue to live on, and that'll be the landing page for all of these resources. Although we are going to do some website updates, probably in the next 6 months to a year or so, you will see it change a little bit, but I guarantee you the resources will still be there. Okay, so that's what I've got. This is the team. If you want to contact anybody, let me move out of the way of Haley's email. It is haley@CAHSS.org. If you can't see it, if I'm in front of it, feel free to reach out to any of us. I will mention Tanaya is on maternity leave. Let's see, for about until the middle of September. So maybe leave her be, but if you do email, it'll send it to one of the other emails here. So reach out. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you. If you're having a workshop or you need help from the council in some manner, we're here to help. And we look forward to engaging more with everybody in the future. So with that, if there are some questions, I would love to take them. Let's see here. Lance, you okay if I manage this and read through these?
Please do.
Perfect. Well, first of all, Jennifer is chanting SEC over there because of the license increases in the Southeast. We all know the Southeast is great. That's where I live. Haley has dropped her email in the chat because, you know, I'm just blocking things over here with this newfangled presentation. Matthew Cameron is asking, is there B-roll footage available in the Clearinghouse? Right now, we've got a few videos in there. We don't have a lot. Certainly, if you have some B-roll footage that you want to put in there, that would be awesome. Right now, it's mostly photos, PDFs, different resources like that. But there's a pile of photos in there. I encourage you to get on there and check it out. And we are going to increase the capacity of the Clearinghouse as well. So there's no point in hosting this thing if we can't put as many resources as possible on there. So as we get to our storage limit, we will be upping that. So video content, whatever it is, please feel free to put it on there. I believe, Lance, that's all I had, unless anybody else has any questions.
Did you catch Don's question?
Let me see.
Don asked, is access to the Clearinghouse easy through your website?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's really easy through nationalr3community.org. It might not be as easy through the council website. However, like I mentioned, we are updating the council website in the near future. And along with that, nationalr3community.org will be updated. If you did want to find the clearinghouse through our website, you would just go to the R3 dropdown and then the National R3 Implementation Work Group. Did I cover everything, Lance?
I think you got it. Thank
All
you,
right.
Swanny.
Thank
I
you, sir. I
appreciate it.
appreciate you having me on.
Okay, next up, we will have Nephi Cole. Nephi is the Director of Government Relations and State Affairs for the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and he'll provide us an update and some information out of those folks. Thank you, Nephi.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Let me try and make sure all my technology works here for a second, because it's a little intimidating. It always is. All right, in theory, I'm sharing the screen with you guys. Can you see that?
We are. It's your full presentation. If you would like me to, I could share it for you too.
All right.
Oh,
No,
you got it.
I think I'm good. So, hey, thank you all for giving me a few minutes. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Nephi Cole. I'm Director of Government Relations and State Affairs for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Who is the National Shooting Sports Foundation? As you probably know, we are the Firearms Trade Association of America. So we represent anyone that makes, moves, or sells a firearm, firearm component, ammunition, optics. We represent outdoor media. We represent shooting ranges. So I jokingly say, we are the, a lot of people confuse the industry with the National Rifle Association. We like to let them know that that is not the case. We say, if you go to Shields and you buy a firearm in, Shields or a Sportsman Warehouse or whatnot, and then you walk out into the parking lot. When you walk into the parking lot, that's the NRA's world. When you turn around and look at the industry, so the people who are in charge of compliance, the people who make, who build, who deal with regulators, that's our world, the National Shooting Sports Foundation. We run a show called SHOT Show that most people are aware of. It's the largest trade show of its kind in the world. It's the third largest trade show currently in Las Vegas. We hope to see you all there next January. So I wanted to start out by talking a little bit, I'm going to piggyback on something that Swanny shared. First of all, I'd like to castigate him a little bit for not taking another half hour of time, because I was originally slated for the 2 o'clock time frame. So I could have used that to study a little bit more. But I appreciate what he said about the council's involvement in shooting sports and how they're looking more at the shooting sports. And I'd like to share why that's important to your agencies and to the future of hunting in general. Currently, 80% of Pittman-Robertson dollars that come from non-hunting related uses. So 80% of your PR dollars are coming in from sport shooting. They're coming in from people who are going out and shooting trap and skeet. They're coming from people who are shooting 3-gun matches and IDPA. They're coming in from individuals who bought from an old lady that bought a revolver at the local gun shop and is taking classes and is basically going through 50 rounds of ammunition during her afternoon at the range. So that's 80% of your Pittman-Robertson funding. That creates a little bit of a challenge. And the challenge with that is, as we look at growth in hunting and the shooting sports, and we look at agencies and kind of what we tend to historically prioritize, what we notice is this. It's really easy to draw a direct correlation between license sales, so those sales that are going on day to day, and how that benefits a state wildlife agency. But as we all know, roughly 50% of the funding that comes into our agencies is coming from Pittman-Robertson. And so that's more difficult when somebody is participating in a shooting sports activity, because you don't have that license that immediately shows benefit in terms of dollars and cents to an agency. It's a lot harder to get state agencies to invest in on the ground in shooting sports, but it's critical. How critical is it? It's about 80% critical to the future of Pittman-Robertson and the funding that that provides. So let me give you an example of some states that are doing some phenomenal things in order to increase participation in that arena and use PR dollars to do so. I'm going to talk about Colorado. So August 5th through 8th, Colorado is going to host an event called the Comp Expo. And you can see that online if you just Google Comp Expo, one word, COMPEXPO. And what the Comp Expo is it's at their Cameo Shooting Sports facility. That facility is a $9 million Pittman-Robertson facility. And it really is world class. It's phenomenal. So that facility that Colorado built is going to host on the same weekend a World 3-Gun match. It's going to host a Total Archery Challenge event called the Total Archery Experience. It's going to host a national level sporting clays event and a precision rifle match called the National Rifle League Hunter National Championship. That's all going to be happening on the same footprint on the same weekend. And what that's going to do is create gravity to bring the general public in, and it's going to allow them not only to watch competitors, but also the vendors there, people like Savage Arms and Stag Arms and Weatherby and Loophole and Sig Sauer and Easton. It's going to allow people to provide, to get hands-on where their professionals there will be able to introduce new participants in hunting and the shooting sports to different platforms, to let them shoot different firearms, to let them try different games. If they want to try sporting clays, they're going to get to try that. If they want to try a long rifle, they're going to get to try that, or archery. So it should be a really neat event. Kudos to Colorado for hosting events like that. South Dakota is looking at building a similar facility around Rapid City, and it's going to be about the same dollars, but it'll have the same capacity to host thousands of people at a hunting and shooting sports event on the same weekend. So for all you states that are doing that, thank you, because those rising tides, you know, when we put money into hunting and the shooting sports, those rising tides float all boats. Conservatively, with the amount of people that are going to be participating at these events, you're going to see 500,000 rounds of ammunition shot on that weekend at the Cameo Shooting Sports Complex. Why is that important? Because as I always say, every time you hear a gun go bang, you just think to yourself, well, that's a nickel for conservation. That's a nickel for conservation. That's a nickel for conservation. And so kudos to those states who are doing that. And I wouldn't have shared that all with you, except I knew I had a whole bunch of time, but I needed to try and burn some additional time up. So please check that out, the Competition Expo. And then we hope to see you all at SHOT Show on January 18th of 2022. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the changing demographics of firearms ownership in 2020. As we all know, 2020 was a very challenging year. It was challenging for a variety of reasons. But within the firearms community, believe it or not, it was really challenging for us too. It was challenging because we saw unparalleled growth in our community. We all saw unparalleled growth in the numbers of people purchasing firearms, in the demand, and our members had to get really inventive in terms of making sure that they could meet that demand, making sure that they could get product out the door, and that they could try and get people what they needed and wanted in 2020. So here's a few of the things that the media said about 2020. Firearm sales and federal background check purchases soared to all-time highs in March. That's from NBC News on April 3rd, 2020. Sales of firearms have hit a new high in the US, already topping the prior records set in 2016. That's November 3rd. That's November 3rd, 2020. So you see, here we are half a year later, and people are still saying it's still growing. We're still seeing, you know, enormous growth. Dealers sold more than 2 million firearms in January, and this is 2021, a 75% increase over the same month last year, the biggest selling January on record. That's from the AP on February 24th, 2021. So what we saw is a trend, and that trend was huge. Here are numbers from 2000 to 2020, and these are U.S. firearms background checks. So this is the number of checks that we had to process for selling firearms. As you know, all of our members, NSSF, are all federally licensed firearms dealers. Every gun that we sell has a background check on that firearm. So I just want to clarify that so you guys know where we get a bunch of these statistics from. So what's the difference of 2020 versus previous years? Truthfully, we have had bumps before, and you saw in that previous graph, there were bumps, for example, in the transition between presidencies. It's very common. So what was different in 2020? Well, the biggest difference in 2020 was, number one, we didn't have a change in presidency yet. Number two, we had over 8.4 million new gun owners in 2020, 8.4 million. That was 40% of all purchases in 2020 were new firearms owners. So first time, that's not me going out to buy another gun. That's not you going out to buy another gun. If you're an avid hunter, that's a new gun owner. That's a huge opportunity and a huge challenge. There's a big increase in diversity, 58% increase in purchases by African Americans, and about 40% in females purchasing firearms and owning firearms. And again, many of these, almost half, were for the first time. So why did they buy firearms? So the first thing I'd like everybody to note is there's a common misconception out there that's being pushed around and bandied that that the firearms industry was, somehow working on this. They weren't. There was no additional advertising. There was no push. This was organic growth in purchasing. And here's what people purchased. And this is probably understandable given what 2020 looked like. About 34% of people who purchased firearms purchased for what they said were self-defense reasons. About 22% purchased for home defense. Interestingly, about 22% also purchased their firearms for hunting. And that's pretty critical if you think that. 8.4 million people, new gun owners, do the math on that. A big number of those gun owners were planning on using those firearms for hunting. Then we had, of course, target shooting, collecting, and then some people who didn't choose to answer. So this caused a really significant change, and it caused a significant change not only in kind of what we have to provide and be ready to provide to new users. And we can talk a little bit about that if somebody has a question about ammunition, things like that. But it also, it shows a huge change that was political in nature as well, that I believe is very influential and very important for us, and is going to help us hopefully get past gun arguments and on to basically the more important things about how we can, move together jointly and pragmatically, on hunting and shooting sports issues. So here's the big change that happened. People, if you look, became more supportive. About a third of voters became more supportive of the right to keep and bear arms during that time period. So what that did is we had people on the far left and the far right, their opinions really didn't change much about Second Amendment issues and firearms ownership, but people in the middle shifted significantly to the right. And they didn't necessarily change any of their other political beliefs. They just became significantly more supportive of the right to keep and bear arms. And we saw this play out in every state, and it's universal in nature. So why did they buy? So some questions and answers that came in. What do you believe is the most common reason for someone to own a gun? A plurality of voters believed that self-defense was the most common reason for gun ownership. A majority said that either self-defense or home defense being the primary reason to own a gun. Interestingly enough, this is going to be probably counterintuitive. About 41% of Republicans said that self-defense was the most important reason to own a gun. Democrats were more likely to say hunting. And so that's interesting, because I think a lot of us would think that traditional gun owners, that it would be backwards of that people who use firearms for hunting would tend to think of firearms as hunting being the major reason to use a firearm. It's actually was opposite of that. And that kind of plays into kind of some of the messaging that you see from people about, oh, well, what do you need for hunting and what don't you? But it's important. Southern states like Florida, Georgia, North Carolina were more likely to say self-defense was a use for the primary use for firearms. Midwestern states, you had 37% and 43%. And for example, Michigan and Minnesota were more likely to say hunting was the most common reason to own a firearm. So that's why people bought firearms. And I hope you guys have some questions about this. I'm happy to answer them. I'd like to talk about what people purchase when they purchase firearms today, so that we're all clear. Within the wildlife, within our community, within the hunting and shooting sports community, there's probably a tendency to assume that what people buy firearms wise and how they use firearms lines up with what we buy. So for example, if I open my gun safe in my office and look at what I would typically own and use and how I would use it, there's going to be an assumption that everybody else is similar to me. But let's look at what actually, and I apologize, I see a note come up in the chat, but I'm not going to have a chance to read it yet. Let's look at what people actually purchased. 50% of the firearms purchased in the United States of America are handguns. 20% are modern rifles. Those modern rifles are things like ARs. They're typically, they are semi-automatic center fire rifles. That's 20% of the market. All other rifles are 16% of the market. So while my safe, because I'm an avid hunter, may tend to be heavy on the bolt action side, that's not the reality with the majority of America. Shotguns make up 12% of sales, muzzleloaders 1%, and air rifles 1%. Interestingly enough, of those firearms purchased, about 1 in every 5 firearms purchased is generally for used in hunting. And this is how I like to explain that, if you could bear with me and picture this. So let's take every gun in America, let's shake it out on the carpet and just have a giant pile of guns. Now let's reach in there and pull out a gun. About every 1 in 5 guns that we pull out of that is a hunting gun. What does that mean? It's a gun that somebody's going to use for hunting. That's what a hunting gun is. So roughly half of those that we pull out are traditional rifles for that. Now, interestingly enough, if we were to shake all of the modern rifles, modern sporting rifles, these are typically AR platform rifles that you hear about, semi-automatic center fire rifles. If we shake all those out on the carpet and we start pulling those out, 1 in 4 of those is going to the field as a hunting rifle. That's what it's getting purchased for. Roughly half of all shotguns, it's the same. So the important thing that I want you to understand in that is modern sporting rifles, modern rifles, these semi-automatic center fire rifles are used in hunting at roughly the same percentage as the overall percentage of guns. It's really a change in paradigm. So it literally is just another rifle. It's just another firearm. It's just another gun that people are taking out. And so the reason I bring this up is because there's going to be a lot of discussion within this group, within other game and fish agencies that's going on right now, about barriers to hunting, about all the new gun owners and how we get them transferred over from just being gun owners and into being participants in hunting and the shooting sports. And so I pose you this question. Are we creating barriers to hunting based on preconceived notions of what hunters look like, what their guns should look like? Are we prejudicing our efforts to bring new people in? If I believe that everyone that should participate in hunting should be wearing a red flannel shirt and be carrying a lever gun, what am I doing to my R3 opportunities? If I think that everybody needs to be wearing QU and shooting a bolt gun with an optic on it, what am I doing to my R3 opportunities when I know that that represents 16% of the firearms purchased in the United States of America? So I just want you guys to think about that, and let's, for our perspective as the industry, it's time to get it's time to move away from our preconceived notions of how people need to look to hunt and what gun they need to carry to hunt. So here's the take home, and I hope you guys have some questions. And Lance, if you can help me with those, I'd really appreciate it. But here's the biggest take home from the industry that we learned from 2020. Gun buyers look different than they used to. The new gun buyers look a whole lot more like America. They're far more diverse than they've ever been before. And that's something that we in the hunting community need to realize. If we want to keep hunting and the shooting sports going, we have to be inclusive of diversity. Diversity in people, what they look like, what they hunt with, all those things. Second take home, 80% of Pittman Robertson funds are coming from gun owners that do not hunt. That's important because as we look at agency funding and where we're going to spend funding in order to keep people coming to the door and hunting, we have to be cognizant of where they are coming from, how they're choosing to spend their money, and where the sources of Pittman-Robertson funding are coming from. And finally, to recruit, retain, and reactivate hunters. We can't expect them, we got to stop stereotyping. We can't expect hunters to shoot the same gun that we shoot, to look like we look, to embrace our hunting culture. We have to open doors and break down artificial barriers that we've built and encourage people to come and build their own hunting culture. And so if we're successful at doing that, if we don't require everybody, I mean, to use a common term, if we don't say like, we are FUDs, quote unquote, and everyone must become like us in order to participate in hunting and shooting sports, we're gonna grow. What we've seen, and this is not on one of my slides, but we'll share it with you, is that if you think about this, the numbers of gun owners in the United States of America has never gone down. In fact, firearms ownership is growing. It's growing significantly. Participation in the shooting sports is going up. It's an increasing number, and it's significant. That's different than the trend that we've seen in hunting. And so I think we really need to think about, okay, how do we extend the trend for gun ownership and participation in shooting sports? How do we reverse the curve on hunting itself and make sure that those numbers, don't continue to go in opposite directions? With that, let me see if I can see if we have, I don't have any, my Q&A is not showing any questions. And I'll turn it back over to you, Lance. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
There is a question there that asks if you could share again how the data was collected from gun purchasers.
I appreciate that very much. We actually use Southwick and Associates to collect data. And so we hire outside firms to collect our data. We do statistically valid sampling. I can't tell you exactly, I don't recall the details of this specific one, but we're looking at numbers where we can statistically verify that they are accurate. So we're talking about thousands of different respondents. Typically we'll reach out to gun owners and of course to our members, who are the folks that are selling firearms. And I say we reach out, NSSF doesn't reach out directly. We'll hire firms to do that, like Southwick and Associates.
And Tim had posted, we were recently approached by several BIPOC communities about gun safety based on concerns about increasing gun ownership in those communities without the benefit of gun safety. I'm wondering if some of this messaging can be done at the point of sale or even driven by groups like yours.
I really appreciate that question. So first of all, let me write down a couple of those things. So number one, NSSF, as most of you are aware, we have a program called Real Solutions. We've been running it for a long time. And so we have firearm safety programs like Project Child Safe, Operation Secure Store, Own It, Secure It. We've got a wide variety of safety programs that the industry has been running for decades. We're very proud of that. We're going to continue to do that. Those are voluntary programs that the industry puts into place. We've participated with 15,000 law enforcement agencies, as an example, to distribute 40,000 trigger locks. I'll bet every one of your agency has some of those trigger locks. We do think it's important to get that message out there, to be proactive. And at the industry, we'd like to believe that we are very much doing that. Every time when somebody buys a firearm, we really strongly encourage them to look at safe storage, to look at all the things that are going to make that more safe. At point of sale, it's a great question. So what more can we do at point of sale? I don't necessarily know the answer to that question, because we really work on that. I would counter, since we have wildlife professionals, we have agencies, a lot of them like New Mexico Game and Fish on this. There's always been a very strong focus, once again, from game and fish agencies on things like hunter safety, right? And that's natural, right? Because that's where we come from. I was participating on a group earlier in the year where we discussed some of these challenges in new hunters, and not just the challenges in who is purchasing firearms, but also in where and how we are delivering our firearm safety. If you take a hunter safety class, and that used to be the default, right? With the assumption that most people buy guns, they're going to be hunters. That's how we deliver gun safety information. Most of our game and fish offices where people are reaching out are in rural settings. And so what we'd say is we think that it is incumbent that on state agencies, again, where we have an 11% tax on everything that we manufacture that's going out to agencies to do education, that we start looking at urban centers and how we can deliver in urban centers to new gun owners who may not be going into the field yet. We're hopeful that we can get them into the field, but I think you guys are going to be talking about this, and we're very interested in it, how we can get people who live in downtown Denver and who are new firearms owners out in the field and participating and getting firearms education. Hunter's education does it. If we get that in schools, it would be awesome. But it's just not a trendy thing to say. It's like, let's have hunter's education in schools, or let's have hunter's education classes in some of these new places. I actually put a question up, and Lance, I know you're gonna ask me another question in a second, but I actually put a question up in the hunter's education area. I love what Hawaii has done. And so if anybody on here, Hawaii is one of those states that has made hunter's education more available by having a robust online program so that people can go in and take hunter safety more easily. I know I live in Wyoming, and to tell you the truth, getting my son into hunter's education, and I'm a hardcore hunter, is hard. It's hard to find the time. It's hard to find a class that has, where it's open, where they can do a field day. And so I think this is a real challenge for us is, I'd invite you guys as game and fish agencies, how can you help us provide this level of education using new technology and new tools? Because I will tell you, NSSF, we're not as big as you'd think. We're about 50 employees. We're trying very hard to deliver everything that we can, but it's a daunting task.
Okay, next one we have up here is from Dawn. It's increasing shooting and hunting is great, but they got to have ammo to shoot. When is ammo going to become readily available again?
I'm glad you asked. So it's tomorrow. I'll be selling ammunition in my garage. If you guys like to come to my house, I'll get you some. That's not true. I'm not selling any of my ammo, and neither are you. You're not selling any of yours. And let me tell you, so here's what happened with the ammunition shortage. It is coming back. And so especially in the more popular calibers, you can probably find those right now at places where you couldn't find them a couple of months ago. So, and that's because typically when we run, ammunition mini cases, they'll run a certain, the machines are only running, depending on the company, there's only X number of machines and they're running different lots at different times. And so of course, the stuff that's most popular, that's going to be the stuff that comes through and gets done first, that they're going to do in the largest quantity. So if you've got a 308, a 223, you're probably going to be a 6.5 Creedmoor. You're going to be in pretty good shape here pretty soon if you're not already. It's probably going to take a little bit longer on some of the more oddball cartridges. And honestly, I'm still trying to find small rifle primers. So if somebody wants to call me and tell me how to deal with that, that's great. Let me tell you why that's occurring. We really, we don't have as many manufacturers of primers as you would think. And so only a couple of different companies make primers. And then there is a supply and demand issue that's going on. That supply and demand issue is because of those 8.4 million new gun owners. And so if you do the math on that, even if we as a gun owner, those of us who had firearms before, when we go purchase a firearm, we typically didn't purchase a firearm, then a whole bunch of ammunition for that firearm. We just purchased the gun, took it home, put it in the safe. We might buy a box or two. These new firearms owners, that 8.4 million, they're not just, so this, kind of answers the question before. They're not just buying a firearm, they're also buying training. They're going to the ranges. And because these first-time gun owners are actually far more likely as a percentage to immediately enroll in a class or ask somebody to teach them to shoot a gun than a traditional firearm owner, believe it or not. So your guy who was like old FUD who just used to shoot, I still think I know how to do everything. I don't need new ammo. I'm much less likely to take a class than one of these new gun owners is. And that's a fact. So those new gun owners are shooting more ammunition. The other thing that's happening is because people like me, and you're a great example. I'm gonna say, Lance, what's your favorite caliber?
270.
270. If Lance goes into a sportsman's warehouse, Lance, you walk past a box of ammo that's the ammo used for hunting today. If you look to your right and you see that box of ammo, are you buying it?
Yes.
Yes, he is. Everyone else is doing the exact same thing. So everyone across the nation, every gun owner, if we would have left that box on the shelf before because there wasn't this idea. It's like hoarding toilet paper. There wasn't this idea that we might need it. And now suddenly we look to our right, we see a box of ammunition and we immediately like, oh, I got to buy that. That's the other thing that's going on. So it's not massive hoarding of ammunition. What it is just the average gun owner looks to his right. He sees a box that he would have left on the shelf before, he picks it up. So that's going to begin to correct itself as people start seeing more ammo show up in stores. Are going to realize they can still get it next week. That's gonna help. Over time, yeah, we're going to have to increase capacity to meet the needs of those 8.4 million new gun owners. But we're going to be able to do that. The industry's working on it really hard. I know Federal Premium Ammunition is an example right now. They're doing everything they can. I have to assure you of that. They're running literally every line that they have 24/7. And that's, and it takes time to build capacity. And those companies people are asking them to build capacity, well, they have to wait long enough to make sure that they get a bead on what the actual capacity will be before they start building new factories. You will see new factories coming online. It's happening with a number of companies like Sig Sauer. It's happening with others, but it's going to take a little while. I think by this fall, by hunting season, you're going to be able to buy the box or two of shells you need to hunt, as long as we don't see as long as we don't see a mad rush once again. So.
Okay, that looks like all of our questions for now. Thank you, Nephi.
Lance,
Very informative, and I appreciate you stepping up and sharing this with us today.
Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, since we're a little bit ahead of schedule here, the good news is that I'm going to let everybody take a 10-minute break, and then we'll pick back up with our last two sessions today. Everybody be back here at 2:10. You don't have to sign out and leave. Most of you are muted anyway, and videos are shut down. So we'll catch you right back here in about 10 minutes. Next up, we're going to have Alex Baer. Alex is the Executive Director of the International Hunter Education Association. He's going to be talking about hunter education today and tomorrow. Really excited to have Alex here today. A lot of great things, a lot of great changes occurring at AHIA, and I'm sure many of you will find what he has to say today to be very interesting. So Alex, with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to you. And thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Lance. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm gonna grab the screen here in a second to go over some the slide deck put together, but I do want to, just before I get to that, just look behind me real fast, a couple of pieces of art on the wall. These are some of the pieces of art that IHEA has put together in the past with some partners to help create an image of hunter education that everybody can have on their wall for instructors, any of that. We are looking to make a new one that demonstrates some of the things you've already heard about in this presentation, some of the things about inclusivity, making sure we have the diversity that actually does represent hunters today and new firearm purchasers. So just so you know, as far as you are all the communicators of the industry, it's a great chance to address you. We're going to run a contest this fall. We'll have more information coming out soon on that, but we're hoping to get a photo contest to then choose a winner that will actually be the new image representation from IHEA USA on hunter education in this country's changing demographics. And then we'll have that chosen photograph be turned into a piece of art. So just something fun to let everyone know about. It's the first time I've talked about it here, so happy to do so to this group. Let me grab the screen here. And so make sure everybody can see this. Looks like I'm sharing correctly. I can't see anybody, so I'm just going to hope it's all good. And if not, hope I'll get some screams and yells.
You're good to go, Alex.
Thank you, Lance. So we've heard from some great presenters today. Hopefully everybody on the call has been here all along, because some really great information. Nephi had some awesome stuff there on firearm ownership and the demographics and the changing of the folks who are buying those firearms. I want to start, I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule still. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, Hopefully I get the chance to meet you and we start traveling around again or through opportunities like this. But I saw Jeff Rawlinson on the chat earlier. And if you know Jeff, this will make a lot more sense to you. But if you have extra time in a presentation, you might not want to give it to someone like myself or Jeff Rawlinson because we can take it. And we've got things to talk about here from IHEA. So today, tomorrow, we're not even going to look back because there's just too much exciting stuff going on now. It's intentionally left out of the title as far as looking behind. So let's look forward. What we're going to cover, just to give you guys an idea of what this is going to look like today from us. We're going to look at the team, much like the council was talking earlier about how they've got a changeover on their personnel. So do we at IHEA. We'll discuss that here. Rebranding, that logo in the screen, you might not have seen that before. It's our new logo. We launched that earlier this year. We've slightly switched our focus, but we're still very much focused, of course, on education and R3. And we have some new programs. What we're doing now, they may not even be aware of because not everyone understands completely what IHEA USA does for the industry. So hunter education, how it fits in the big picture of R3. And then how we approach hunter education, not only as an organization, but as a nation. And then we're going to suggest some things looking at the IHA tomorrow and to think about how we could approach hunter education. I'm hopefully going to give you a few things to think about, especially as the communicators who largely, really primarily control the messaging that happens to the public, which includes our education opportunities. It includes what comes after those opportunities that are already presented, all of it, as you know. We'll talk about some of the new programs we're looking to launch, some of our new partners we're looking to bring on, who have already signed on to be partners on new projects. And then we'll just talk a little more about that communication piece. Real quick though, I want to circle back on something because we do have a couple extra minutes. So, and we can take questions later on this, but Nephi had a couple of questions on how to, could we at the point of sale try and address education for firearm owners, not necessarily hunters, knowing that so many people do buy a firearm, which then of course contributes to conservation. How do we help them make that connection? What are we doing for that group? And I wanted just to bring out here some things. So just about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, we've had some conversations with IHEA and AFWA Executive Committee. And those conversations were largely around educational opportunities for new firearm purchasers, knowing there's the 8.5+ million new gun owners in this country. So since then, we've put together a few pieces, had some great panels, some great committees helping us out with building a request for proposal, building out what a course might look like that's not focused specifically on hunting, but simply on firearm ownership. Of course, safety is a big piece of that. Safety in the home, safety at the range etiquette, some of the pieces that are often offered through programs that are out there, but not necessarily offered on programs through the states. And we'll talk about a little more later on today. If you have questions, I'm happy to field these questions. I don't take up too much time here, but we are creating a new course. It will launch, so far it's on pace to launch this fall. I'm hesitant to say September, although we're still on pace. We'll say September, but don't be surprised if it's in early October, late September release, just because things do happen that way. But that's real soon, right? We're practically in August already. So we're looking at launching a course this year. It will be for the states to offer if they choose to, hopefully they do. And that's a program that we are very excited about to help answer that question. I want to call out, I think I have this right from Tim Akinoff earlier. So more on that later on, more to come, of course, but as communicators, I hope you're excited about talking about a new opportunity there that the states offer and then benefit from all the people who register for that course. They'll go directly into those states' marketing channels and hopefully become an opportunity to educate other individuals on hunting and days at the range and everything else that might be available to them that your state offers. So happy to talk about that, but just jump into this presentation as I had planned. That was just an easy sidestep from the last presentation. I thought Nephi handled it very well. I wanted to add some to it. So let's go to the next slide here. This is the team. So right now we've got, obviously I'm in the corner here. Lance already introduced me. I'm a new executive director of IHEA USA. Andrew Smith He's our new membership director. He's a friend of mine for a long time. We closed the office in Denver, Colorado, and now we work from home, which is great until you live in a place like Missoula, Montana, which is very smoky at the moment. So I'm sorry if I get a little raspy in the voice. It's great to be here, but it is a smoky time. So bear with me on that. But Andrew is also in town here in Missoula, Montana. So I guess if we had a home office, it would be here at this point, although really we work from our homes as many people do. So on top of that, Andrew came in as the membership director, which really points a lot to us. As an organization, an NGO, we do not, our economic driver, so to speak, is not memberships, as it is for so many other nonprofit organizations that are like NWTF, RMEF, those groups. We do have membership. The states are actually members of IHEA, and we have individual memberships as well, but it's only for instructors and educators. So what's not a major economic driver for us, it is still a huge part of our business, and everything that we do is meant for those members. Members are the states, which is most people on this call. So if you think of a service that we could offer you, let us know. We're always looking to increase our offerings. And we have some new things today to talk about. Jay Ellison in the top right here is from Northway Outdoors. He's a contractor. He's also a licensed accreditor. I'll talk about this a little more, but IHEA USA creates the national standards for all the safety education courses. And then those course standards are compared to the courses that are created to ensure that all the standards are met. And the educational standards are met, the safety standards are met. We have interactive standards as the courses now have changed to more of an educational interactive experience. And we continue to evolve those as we go. In fact, I believe next year, we're up to review those one more time. It is a cycle that we go through, and Jay works with us to ensure those standards are met in all the courses that are out there. That also leads to reciprocity between states. You take a hunter ed course in Mississippi, that course, because it fits the same standards, then also works to allow you to purchase a license in the state of Missouri. So that's where IHEA really plays a big part in R3, is maintaining the standards for that reciprocity. Imagine taking hunter ed every time you went to a new state to buy a license. Non-resident licenses have probably hurt a little bit. This year, we added some new resources to our team, also contractors. Bolt Strategy, if you're familiar with Bolt, you may be familiar with Leah or Mike Thomas. They worked separately previously. Now they have their own organization. Hunter's Handbook was a product that IHEA put out years ago. Very popular, especially with instructors. That no longer exists. It was a publication that was sent in the mail. Obviously, things are moving more digitally now. We've gotten away from that product. There's some discussions about maybe bringing something back that might be similar to it. But right now, Bolt has been a huge help to us. We had an entirely online international conference this year that Bolt secured some great partnerships for. And they're going to help with the marketing effort to launch that firearm fundamentals course that IHEA is putting out here in the next couple months. So I'm really excited for that. They've been great relationships in the industry, especially the firearm side. They handle our marketing and PR. So then Gecko Designs they've redone our branding. I mentioned, we're going to talk about branding a little bit. So Gecko Designs is another organization out of Missoula, Montana, which made it easier for me to work with them. They handle our graphics. They manage and host our websites, and they help us out with other things as they come up, like new projects and programs and our needs for those. So to go to some of our programs here, the IHEA USA, we are, as the name implies, the American branch, right? The United States America branch of IHEA. There's an IHEA Canada, there's an IHEA Mexico, there's IHEA South Africa. There are many countries that are included with the International Hunter Education Association. The standards that are created here in the States come from a committee that is largely put together by the state hunter education administrators. So many of your states actually helped to create those standards. Well, those standards are not only our national standards, they are used to help other countries create international hunter education associations, which in some cases actually allow them to have organized hunting, because they have to have that safety piece there before the government there will allow them to really do anything with organized hunting. So pretty big deal. I was excited to learn that when I came in this organization, and I figured not a lot of people on this call are aware of that connection. So some of the pieces that IHEA USA maintains, we have a national database of the hunting incidents. So when a state reports an incident that happened while hunting, it goes into a database that then is put into the national side, which we maintain on our website, ihea-usa.org. That's, we've recently redone the database, the look and feel of it. And it's a bit of a work in progress, but we are adding more data to it. It's easier now to add data to it from the states. And it is, I think, a little simpler to navigate, but it's also open to the public with fields that are hidden from the public view and only allowed for professionals in the industry who come from hunting education teams. That's really intentional and a good idea, because there's some information there that could be a little bit too much information for the public to have, like the name of an officer as far as a case. The state wants to know that information, especially the ones who put the information into the database, but the public, we don't want them to know who that was. So there's a whole new look and feel to the database. If you're from the public looking at it, it will look a little different than it would if you were a professional. And if you are looking for that access and you work in the state agency, just reach out to us. We'll give you our information here at the end of the presentation, and we can set you up with an account to our website to allow you to access the information if you're going to be using that for any of your communication. Some great stuff in there that you might want to know about, like how few incidents there actually are for hunting. That's something we probably don't talk about enough. Really important stuff to say how few people are hurt and really very few are fatally wounded from a hunting incident. So check that out if you haven't already. We're also adding a new database here. We're going to have a student demographic database, hopefully going live before the end of this year. That's part of multi-state conservation grant project right now, as student demographics have changed with the movement towards online education. We're hoping to understand our customer a little better by offering that database. I think that'll be a great resource to anybody from ACI, because you want to know exactly who we're talking to. It might help you out putting some of your strategies. We also have the Hunter Incident Investigation Academy. Everything's an acronym, right? That's how everybody wants to run the world. So HIIA, but that is our academy for professionals. So anyone working in law enforcement can go through a Hunter Incident Investigation Academy and become a specialist in investigating hunting incidents, which is important because not every death in the woods is a hunting incident, right? And we make sure everybody understands how to properly process those and how to properly ascertain the true cause of an incident. So that academy, I'm happy to report this year we're actually running 2 of those. Each one typically runs about 40 individuals through at a time. It's a week-long academy. Very, I want to say intense, but it's very in-depth is probably the right way to say that. And it covers a lot of material and does create specialists in the field. Your state likely has one or several specialists. If you don't, we're coming, and we're hoping to get you guys into the mix so you can have some people on staff that have that training. We also, as I mentioned, the national standards, the accreditation process. I jumped the gun on that one a little bit already, but that's a big piece for us, and that does manage the reciprocity, which of course I think is largely a huge R3 piece of what IHEA does. It also works internationally. So if you were to come from Canada and the International Hunter Education Association, you've taken a course up there that goes through the standards they have in place, you have a specific card. That card is accepted in the United States of America, so you can buy a hunting license without having to go through the hunting education again. And many countries hold that reciprocity. So we think about all the time, how do we get people in this country to buy a license? Well, how about getting people from other countries to come to America to hunt too? Pretty cool stuff to think about. We're going to dive into that a little more in the next year or two with some great partners we now have in those countries. So I do want to mention one of our products. You may be familiar with this. If not, I'm happy to bring this to you now. We do have a YouTube channel. It's called Hunters Connect. We have over 130 videos at this point on how to hunting, tutorial style hunting videos all over the map. There's videos hosted by women. There's videos that are put together with very specific audiences in mind. There's archery, shotgun specific, you name it. It really is a wide gamut. We have trapping videos. In the last year, we actually put together special playlists and created certain content specifically for states that requested it, which I'm happy to report we had several requests. I know in New York, we did a whole series of trapping videos, how-to trapping content with Randy Newberg, actually as the professional host for it. He loves to trap, and he was excited for the opportunity to do some videos for it. And that is, so we have 4 videos that are specifically on trapping. I know New York used those. Hopefully if somebody's in the call from New York, you're familiar with this process. They used that with their hunter education students that were online and needed to have a next step of communication. So they could say, well, you've gone through the online training. You're probably not feeling 100% confident yet because we know from research, plenty of people want to know more and don't feel confident yet after simply an online education, mostly. But those individuals were then given links to our YouTube channel with that specific content. So they had an extra resource there that was from the state agency, another touch point that they could trust the content from. So we all know YouTube's full of content I wouldn't necessarily trust. So hopefully what you get from IHEA has the right messages and the right safety illustrated in the video. We just wrote another grant to get that funded for an additional year. We're very hopeful. We were put through the first process and fingers crossed. That program will be changing a little bit into 2022 to include to cater to more diverse audiences. We're looking to partner with 5 organizations. Artemis has already stepped up and said they're very interested in doing this. Artemis clearly focuses on female hunters. We also have Hunters of Color as an organization interested in this, and a couple others we've spoken to, but we're looking to work with them as far as even being the hosts in the videos and helping us come up with the content that really caters to their audiences, because I mean, face it, someone like myself is not going to be the right person to make that decision. So we need to work with our partners to better understand what the needs of their communities are. So that's a big piece of our next step in Hunters Connect. We're also going to be creating not just videos for YouTube. I know if you've watched Matt Harlow's presentation earlier, he was saying, and we probably all thought this a little bit, and it's nice to see the data there supporting it, but younger audiences are looking for more videos in YouTube compared to Facebook. That being said, YouTube is tricky because it's about search, right? You don't necessarily, there's some sharing you can do with links and things, but Facebook's great for sharing. Instagram's great for sharing. YouTube is really solid on search if you know what you're looking for. So we've created this library of resources, which is what we intended to do a couple of years ago. And now we have to make sure everybody knows what's there and that they can access it and how it can benefit them. So we're going to be taking the same clips we've already got, making shorter versions of them that are better for Facebook and Instagram, and then using those in those channels to drive people to YouTube from that market. So we're trying to cover as many bases as we can. Primarily to this point, it's been YouTube. Focused on directions, how this is shifting a little bit. We focus on the educators, volunteers, and educators as volunteers and the agency staff. But it's more than that. If you think about people in scholastic programs, right? The Scholastic Shooting Sports Foundation, the Student Air Rifle Association, those groups have coaches. They have individuals that are teaching and mentoring. We want to develop services and products for them and for those organizations to help keep those volunteers engaged. It's a big deal. People are willing to put their passions into teaching someone how to do something for hunting and the shooting sports. We need to encourage that and make sure we don't help, not just keeping them, retaining them, but also encouraging new people to join them. So a few of our programs are focused on that going forward. So again, focus on the educators. That is what IHEA USA does. Rebranding, as I mentioned before, is complete. The 2 graphics you see below there are the 2 major graphics that we use now. We're both IHEA USA, but different ways of using those. You see them on our website, you see them in our presentations like this, you'll see them in different places. If you don't have the assets to these yet, we have a branding guidelines kit. We have these ready to share with you. Please let us know, reach out. My information again will be at the end of this. We want to make sure you have the kit you need to discuss IHEA as an opportunity or an organization that you can partner with, and some of our products if you need to do anything with those as well. So please let us know. Thank you. We have a new website that's part of the new branding. Check that out if you haven't seen it. We have every week a new Hunters Connect video comes out. The new video is showcased on the website. We also have other connections to programs I'm going to show on here, plus databases that I already mentioned. We offered going to go forward offering a hybrid of online and in-person annual conferences. Just like everybody else, we're excited to see everyone again. But we do understand the importance of offering an online opportunity to even attend conferences in person. So as a board, we've already decided to continue that. No matter what happens next year, we're going to hope to have the combination offered there. It's also because, again, we cater to the educators and many volunteer instructors around the country. It's difficult to ask them. There's 45,000+ volunteer state instructors teaching hunter ed. It's difficult to ask them to travel to, for instance, next year is going to be in Jupiter, Florida. That's going to be a great time. If you can come, please do. But that is a difficult ask for a volunteer. So we'll make sure they have the opportunity to join virtually. I mentioned the artwork piece earlier. We want to be more inclusive and welcoming. If you think about hunter education, I liken a lot of things to retail. I spent too many years working through physical products and retail before I got to this position. But if you think about when you walk into a new retail environment, if you don't feel comfortable there, if you don't feel welcome, the lighting isn't right, the people aren't smiling, you might leave. You might not really want to be there. You might not come back. I think IHEA and hunter education really has to embrace that and say we are the greeter position in large part to this industry. And I'll use the outdoor recreation adoption model here in a slide or two, so I'll talk about that a little more there. And then the last thing is, again, I mentioned this already, but being more involved with IHEA World, which we are on the board for the IHEA World, and that allows us to communicate with those groups. All right, so this is where I just discussed about this model a little bit. So I'm going to talk about hunter education and R3, get people to think a little about different things here. If you think about hunter education, where does it sit on this model? If you're not familiar with this model, please become familiar with this model. This is the outdoor recreation adoption model. This is, you can, ORAM. You can find information on this in the council's page. I actually wanted to give a special shout out to the Wisconsin DNR because I saw they had a PDF of this and it's one of the first things I found through search online. So something's right with their communications team. Their PDF of this document came up quickly in the search. So R3 hunter education. There are states with exceptions to this. I do want to make sure I mention that, but hunter education primarily sits in the recruitment, and I suggest it goes in the interest category of this part of this this model. And I put the words in the top right there, what that looks like, but I'm going to just put this into space. Awareness, interest, trial, right? You have to know there's something hunting exists. It's okay to do. It's not you can get into it in certain ways. The interest comes into hunter ed, and then you have to go out into the field and actually hunt a little, or at least go with someone else or something like that, have an actual experience as part of that trial. I did see some pop-ups on questions. Lance, would you like me to jump into some of the questions as I go instead of getting away from the topics? What's the best way to tackle those?
It's really up to you, Alex. You can decide if you think it's something that you really need to respond to. Feel free.
I don't see them very easily while I'm doing the presentation. So if you think of something that jumps out and you'd like me to hit on it sooner rather than later, just let me know. This model in general is something we're really familiar with. I think that hunter education fits in that first part. Now, I'd like hunter education to start rolling into what IHEA and hunter education looks like tomorrow and going forward. I think hunter ed should play a bigger role in this instead of sitting mostly in this interest place, thinking about this decision to continue. How are we impacting this? If someone gets to this point, looking to continue or not in hunting or the shooting sports, what happens there? What if they don't decide to continue? Do we know that? Can they go back into this? How do we, through the communication effort of the states and through IHEA's hunter education teams and the people that work with the education teams in the states, how do we do something at that point to get them back into the trial again? Maybe it's continuing education, right? Level 2, level 3 education opportunities, something specific for those individuals to say, okay, you didn't make a decision yet to continue, but let's see if we can't get you again before it goes too far away and you haven't bought that license for the second year, something like that. Hopefully there's some questions on this one later on. We can look at this later together. So the current approach to hunter ed, I've go through some pretty fast, a lot of words, and go through this one at a time. So we asked, how do people learn, right? And then we try and figure out, okay, how do we associate our efforts with some sort of measurable metric, right? If we can't figure out, like everybody else, we want to know that what you're doing is making a dent, right? So what are we going to do? So think about a behaviorism approach with education. That's kind of the belief, right here, that learning produces a change in behaviors. So you don't want to teach somebody something if you're not going to see some sort of impact from your teaching, right? Nothing groundbreaking here. I just wanted to lay the groundwork for this conversation. So let me witness it. You want to track that. You want to say, okay, did they, what happened? What education did we give them? What can we see from that? And that's important for this next piece here. So what are we tracking? Well, I mentioned things already. We're tracking hunting incidents. We're tracking if they got hurt, right? And we're seeing, did they buy a license? And not every state makes a great connection yet between the hunter education graduate and the license sale. Some states do really well with it. Some states are ramping up to do better with that, but that's an important piece. And there's some research being done right now to dive into that further from Southwick, and there's some groups working on that. So we'll have more data on it soon. A lot of people don't necessarily buy a license out of hunter's ed because maybe they went into hunter's ed for a different purpose. Maybe as Nephi mentioned earlier, they go there because they wanted to learn about firearm safety, and it was their primary outlet that maybe was free, offered by the state. And then we look at graduation statistics, right? We look and say, okay, well, how many graduates did we have? And do we want to get excited about that, right? Do we have more people last year? Sure, right? Last year, a lot of people went through hunter education. More licenses were sold. We know a lot of these numbers are really exciting. But are we tracking the right metrics to really think about linking that to education, what we're doing? So what happens, the way we do this right now, this is some of what we're looking at right now as an organization, that creates a focus on safety education. Hunter education is largely safety education, right? It's the idea that you don't hurt yourself. And that is obviously whether, whatever came first, chicken or the egg, I don't know, but we track the hunting incidents because we want to know they're going down based on the education that we're providing individuals to give them the information they need so they don't hurt themselves or others. That's where sometimes you think of hunter ed as almost like a safety ed piece. It also sets a basic hunter education. And this is not something I agree with, but I can see what people might believe this sometimes. I think Nephi mentioned this earlier as well. It's hard to get people through hunter education sometimes. And that's when people start to think, is hunter ed a barrier to license sales? And I don't want to support that. I just want to mention it here because I think it is a discussion that you hear sometimes. We don't want that. Nobody wants to think about a barrier to license sales, especially when R3 is absolutely the flavor, right, on everybody's dish right now. You cannot think about something like hunter education getting in the way of license sales. So, but this is one of the conversations that happen when you look at how many graduates you have, how many licenses are sold, and how many people actually get hurt after going through hunter education. It also creates this kind of excitement when somebody passes a test. Well, sure, passing a test is exciting, but is that really the focus, right? Should really be thinking, great, they passed, they graduated, now we have another number. So I just wanted to propose this a little bit and say it's really no surprise that research shows that graduates are still looking for something more after hunter education because they don't yet feel fully confident they're ready to go in their first solo hunt, which means there's more work to do in education. And many states are tackling this. We're here to hopefully unite some of those efforts and to create a bit more of a national program that other states with lower resources can then pick up and the lessons learned from those states that have tried new things and seen great success. And by the way, I'm going to end with some power stats here. Hunting incidents are incredibly low, right? License sales are up, and so are total graduates in 2020 by about 80,000 people. So a lot of people. It's really good news. We are tracking those things, right? So that's what we know. Okay, so how could we change this a little bit? Well, our mission is pretty long. So I just chose to do the ... approach here, where it ends with developing safe, responsible, knowledgeable, and involved hunters. I underlined involved for a reason, right? So sure, safe, that makes sense. The education we focus on largely is about firearm safety and make sure you don't hurt yourself or someone else you're hunting with. Obviously, we're looking to make that a responsible piece that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with safety, but there's more to being responsible. That's where we can think about tracking people that are trespassing or not really understanding the rules of the states that have their different systems in place for that. But knowledgeable, sure. If you're going through education, you're going to learn something, I hope. But the involved piece is really important. I don't think that we do enough yet as an organization to address that, which is why we're going to be changing some of our programs and tweaking some of the ways you approach these things. I want to talk for a second about hobbies and passions. Hobbies. Somebody takes a hobby. If you haven't thought of this before, give it a minute at least to think on this a little bit, and I'll give you some fodder for that conversation. So 2020, right? People's free time opened up. The commute to work went away for a lot of people. That freed up possibly an hour of their day. Some people lost their jobs, or their jobs became less for whatever reason. People stayed home because their kids couldn't go to school. Plenty of people changed the way they lived their lives. And the concept of free time changed for a lot of Americans. Well, that's where hobbies come in, right? People think, well, what am I going to do with my free time? What am I going to do? Let's go fishing. Let's go back. We fished when I was a kid. Let's go back and find that again. See if we can get back into that. Let's check out Hunter's Ed. Hunter's Ed's online this year. There's not as much of a commitment to have to go to the drive somewhere or to spend a full day or even more. Let's figure out if we can, let's learn about this a little bit. Let's be interested and learn something new. I think you saw a lot of that, people going through and hunting for the first time, fishing for the first time, or coming back into it from that reactivation standpoint. But is that enough to turn it into a passion? What we'd like to see is them have a passion for it, right? They're not going to develop a passion going back and trying it once. We know how long some of the hunting seasons are. Yes, I am super spoiled. I live in Montana. Hunting seasons are long. In many states, they are not, especially when you think about, whitetail, deer season, that there are other opportunities, but they may not be familiar with those yet. Obviously, communication helps all that. But how do we turn it from a hobby into a passion? And what metrics can we track to think if we're actually being successful with that? Quick slide on that. Let's see if we can harness emotion to create passion. Emotion and passion go hand in hand. It's contagious. If I'm passionate about something, Hunter's Ed, for instance, hopefully you feel a little bit of that when I'm discussing things through presentations like this. If not, I'm not doing a great job, but that's the idea, is that passion is contagious. Let's get people with passion for hunting, the shooting sports, fishing, all these opportunities, to be with people that are learning, so they can feel that passion, that energy, and hopefully adopt some of it for themselves. One of the big projects we put into place as a grant, we're hoping to receive this grant, we'll see what happens. Hopefully I'm back next year to chat with you again about the future of this, but we're looking to identify some of the emotional triggers from people that are already passionate about hunting. Asking people who are members of National Wildlife Turkey Federation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Pheasants Forever, Delta Waterfowl, those sorts of groups, people are so passionate, they've actually paid additional money just to be part of those groups, to hang out with people and discuss their passion and be around it more frequently. They want to support it. Those individuals, I want to know what their stories are. I want to figure out what their best memories are, where their emotions tie them, and then try and recreate those emotions into educational opportunities for new hunters to try and recreate those moments for them. There's a lot more pages to that proposal, but I wanted to give you the cheat sheet for that one for now. So creating educational roadmaps from that's the hope, is that we figure out what we want to get individuals who have graduated from hunter education on the right path, so that they can completely embrace the passion of this, of hunting. So that's a piece. We also want to track new metrics. Let's think about how many people go through successful mentored hunts, not just past hunter education. How many then are on a mentor opportunity, and what was their feedback from that? Did we get enough people associated with mentors and passionate instructors and educators to feel good about our efforts? That's a number I want to start tracking, thinking about that with some of the states. And maybe even thinking about this is an interesting one. What if we looked at the number of industry and number of people that joined industry NGOs? If that becomes one of the pieces that you do, because you're so involved and so excited about hunting waterfowl, for instance, that you join Delta Waterfowl, is that person coming from Hunter Ed? Is it 3 years after Hunter Ed? Is it 1 year after Hunter Ed? I'm not trying to get to the numbers yet. I'm just proposing some ideas on how we can try and track people moving through and becoming more passionate about hunting. So again, matching people with hunters, passionate hunters, and new graduates. We're also building a new platform right now with some amazing partners. Jeff Rawlinson, I'm calling you out again. I know you're on here, and a couple other folks too. from MAFWA, done some awesome work. Matt Harlow earlier is on part of this project. I think Tanaya actually was mentioned in the council's presentation. She is part of this project. So we're building a platform right now that is a national educator platform to connect mentees, students, call them what you want, with mentors, instructors, coaches, call them what you want. We want to get the educators with the people that want to learn. And that is a major effort. And we are going to build something this year. Next year, we're going to make it pretty. This year, we're going to try and make it functional. So we have something already in the works on that. Stay tuned. I hope everybody's at least excited. I've been talking for a while. Voice is getting hoarse, but I hope you're excited about that one, because that's going to be a major piece for this industry. And I'm hoping all the educators and the communicators can work together on that platform. So please reach out to us. That's where I say we can help. That's my little plug. All right, quick summary here. We have that program I just mentioned is kind of a train the trainer option as well. We're always looking to build new pieces for educators, as I mentioned. We did a pilot this year on a field first aid course. Then we created this badge for us. We can actually digital badging for online courses for educators that are part of the platform, help them make sure that they escort them through the process, they complete the course. We're looking to work with some of the states with their instructor course programs so that we can try and create more of a national standard around those. Some really fun things going on that we're working on there. Trying to engage with current instructors, retain the educators who are now wondering, what's my job going to be? Am I as valuable as I was before? Since Hunter Ed has moved online in such vigor over the last year and a half. We also have an online resource library for educators. This is something much like Swanny talked about earlier from the council. They have Binder, which is the name of the software. We have a Hunter Education library similar to that, with imagery of people teaching courses, students learning. All the Hunters Connect videos we have are being put into that. The ATA, I know Josh is talking next. He might talk about this a little bit as well, but some of their videos they created are also in this platform, and they're available to download. So if you're a communicator looking to reach people, you don't have to send them to YouTube with a link. If you want to download the full video, use it in an opportunity. If you are giving someone teaching a course or doing something maybe in the basement of a school, there's not a lot of great cell service, or maybe the Wi-Fi is not so strong, you can have the full video rather than relying upon a connection to YouTube. It also gives you the chance to put some branding onto it. That's totally fine with us. We hope you do. We can even help you if you need help with that. So all that content is within that platform for you to use. All you need to reach out to us and let's make sure you have a way to get in there. We also offer training on how to use that. If you're interested in getting that, we can set you up with that too. It's a 20-minute training. I mentioned that the national database is a rework. There's a link for that. You can check it out. It's on our website. I also mentioned the Firearm Fundamentals course coming this fall, exclamation point, very exciting. And there's an email we use for kind of general inquiries. My email is, it's abaer@ihea-usa.org. I'm sure you're all available on the platform, Hoover. So check it out there too. And that's our general office number as well. So any questions, please let me know. I took a while. I hope it worked out, Lance, to get you closer to being on track for the next group, but I'm all set.
Okay, thanks, Alex. We will bounce through to the next one up here. Thanks again, Alex, for stepping in and taking one of these sessions for us and sharing with us about IHEA.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, next up for everyone is Josh Gold. Josh Gold is the Senior Manager of R3 and State Relations for the R3 Trade Association. Welcome, Josh, and he'll be sharing an update from the R3 Trade Association with us today.
Yeah, thank you all for having me, and thanks for letting me go. And Alex, thank you for saving me some time. Just want to give you all, and hopefully you can see that, Lance.
I can see it. We're good.
All right. First time for everything, getting that going correctly. So thank you all. My name is Josh Cole with R3 Trade Association. I just want to give an update about who we are, what we have available for you all, and then some things we could hopefully work on moving forward. So kind of happy to go last because I can bounce back to everybody else's topics and how we all work together. So it works out well. But as the R3 Trade Association, just want to put our mission and vision up there. We rebranded a couple years ago, so this is our our updated mission. But who we are, we represent industry. So kind of like with NSSF and Nephi, we do the archery and bow hunting side of things. So our members are manufacturers, retailers, distributors, media, and state agencies. So you all are members as well of the Archery Trade Association. And really what we do is we provide that business support, the advocacy and conservation education for our members. When we redid our mission and vision, it has R3 mixed in there. It has similar goals that you all have as well. So just want to at least put that up there. Our organization is not very big. We're about 20 strong, so we don't do that much, but we partner with a lot of people to get that stuff done. So one big thing we are known for is our trade show. So coming up in January of 2022, we'll be back in Louisville and in person. So last year we had to go virtual like everybody else and like this is, but we learned some things. Our trade show until then has always been in person. It is a business to business trade show. So similar to SHOT Show, it's not quite that big, but we have our business to business, manufacturers and retailers doing business, buying product for the year, testing new equipment. We get to see new products. We have shooting lanes on the floor that somebody can try out new bows, new equipment, and get their hands on all that. We do highlight some partnerships there, but a lot of that is the business side of things. But what's really important about that is that's what helps fund our work. A lot of our members and coming to that trade show is what helps us do our education and outreach efforts throughout the year. So we are known for this, but this is not all we do. And it was mentioned earlier, our show last year went virtual, but we're going to continue some of those virtual pieces, even with an in-person event. So we've learned that those that could normally make it to the show got some benefit out of that education and it being recorded. So our organization kind of split up into a few big pieces. Trade show is one of them. So we internally run our own trade show. Our trade show staff is planned years in advance, and they're working year round on that trade show. One kind of area we work in is, we can call it government relations. Our whole staff of one with a little bit of help, but he does a lot of work, and that's Dan Forrester in this. And with highlighting what he does and what the rest of us do from the industry side, is the industry contribution to conservation. So last year on the archery only side, we passed the 1 billion mark on FET contribution to conservation, and industry and the archery side with Dan was a big proponent and a big part of leading the effort for the PR Monetization Act, which happened. So that allows us to do the marketing and education and outreach. So big piece there. We do a lot of work with other groups, like I said, so we partner on all sorts of issues with those that are on the call today and a lot more. One example that pertains to state agencies is the data dashboards. So something we're really looking for and our members are looking for is up-to-date information on how many participants are out there. Are they participating once a year, year round, all those kind of things. So that's something we're really pushing. And then also advocacy. So we advocate for industry and bow hunters. We do have an action alert system. So if you all within the state have something you would want to get out to our members, whether it's something with regulations, whether it's, whatever that is, upcoming meetings, we can help you with that. So look to us, a resource on this side of things. Dan has worked a lot with equipment regulations and suggestions for that, and just comparing across the nation of how things are working and reducing those barriers to get people involved. It was mentioned with Nephi and the NSSF one, but I want to at least mention the excise tax. So archery equipment does pay an 11% on that first purchase or that first sale of equipment. So when a manufacturer sells it to a distributor or a retailer, that's when that goes out, or when it's first imported. So that 11%, also on arrow shafts, it's a different price, but it's about the 52, 53 cent per shaft right now. And that list of what's taxable and what's not is always changing. So I want to at least throw out there that that's happening, that's there. If you ever have questions on that, we have FET guides for members. If you ever have questions on anything, just please let us know. We work with states on all different levels to work with that. But to kind of talk about where things have gone and where they've been, this does not include new numbers. So if you've seen Dan's latest video, on numbers, I'm going to tell you that in a minute. But 2020, just like everybody else, was not a good year for FET. And FET is, you got to think when it's made, so not when it's sold. So the numbers look a lot better now, but 2020 was rough. A lot of our manufacturers and retailers were closed. They were non-essential, and it affected them greatly. So this kind of breaks it down a little bit more, but at the very end, you do see a spike up, and that's only going higher. Q1 and Q2 of this year have seen record receipts for excise taxes. Arrows are double what they were last year at the quarter. Bows are greatly up, setting believe Q2 was a record high for FET receipts. So manufacturing and the industry is on the upswing from 2020, and we are looking good, and we're hoping to continue that. And that only benefits conservation, like mentioned before. So that those dollars still going right back to the states for conservation, and that's what we're supporting. So one quick example I want to point out there, this 2021 is going to throw some wrenches in this, but we are working on this with American Sport Fishing Association on FET slippage. And what that is anything being a manufacturer that is not paying excise taxes. And that could be shipping from overseas, that could be online sales. It just kind of depends, but it's something they're looking into. Their estimate could be anywhere from $2 to $10 million a year. So how does that affect conservation? It's straight dollars to conservation and doing the state work. So taking a look at some of this stuff is what we do. We look at it with partners and we see what we can do. But this is just kind of one example of something we are looking into on that side. Education and outreach. So that's where I kind of fall under, and our team of 5. Jennifer Mazer on there is our senior director. We have a lot out there to help our members in retail, manufacturing, but also working with state agencies and others. And I'm going to kind of touch on a few of these just so you know they're out there and they're available, and to reach out to us for this. So a couple on this slide, the archery academies. That's something we partner with USA Archery and others to go into a region, a state. Recently, they've been Parks and Rec associations where we go in and we teach archery certification. They get equipment, they get programming, and they get a map to really run programming locally and get those communities involved. And then we have options for a 2.0 academy, which further program and equipment details, but that's explore bow hunting, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's bow hunting curriculum, it's bow fishing, it's hunting, mentoring, all those things that would get them going and more involved in that community. For those that like podcasts, Beyond the Bow podcast is one we do more geared for our industry members, but we are having more upcoming, won't spoil it too much, but some new types of podcasts and guest hosts and things there. But we've talked anything there from mentoring programs to AFWA and our partnership with AFWA, crossbows, all the things there. So please check that out. We're always looking for guests and hosts and ways we can work together there. And then just partnerships overall. We work a lot with state fish and wildlife agencies, our industry partners, and across the board allow us to do a lot more than what we could originally. Anything from multi-state grants to projects to surveys to programming. It just allows us to do a lot more working with great partners. So a few projects that we do kind of want to dive in detail. Hopefully this one loads. It gives it a minute with a lot of the imagery, but our new conservation initiative. And this ties back to the excise taxes. One piece we are missing, and then we've worked with Scholastic 3D Archery to kind of develop this, was target archery, and then bridging that to bow hunting. There's people there, they're interested, they know how to shoot, they have the equipment. It's just a matter of learning more about conservation and bow hunting. So that's what this was developed from, a new initiative launched last year. We are going to build on it. It's a lot of resources. We have a newsletter that goes out. If you want to be added to that newsletter, contact me or go to the website. We can get that out to you. But we're always putting new things out in there. And then a lot of resources. That bottom right one, we've taken activities from Explore Bow Hunting and Bow Fishing and other places and transform them into quick, easy activities you can do at events, you can do at tournaments, things like that. FET cycle, starting to tell the story of conservation and funding. So how the industry, how purchasing a target bow is still contributing to conservation. So just like the firearm sales, not all bows are sold for bow hunting and buying a license, but a lot are being shot at the range, backyards, that kind of stuff. And it still goes to conservation. So telling that story, how that purchase is still going to it. We did partner with state agencies and others to produce a video that's on there, and we're just going to continue doing that. Also partnering with organizations like NSSF and others that tell the story of hunters and the acceptance of hunting, all kind of falls under this conservation initiative bracket. So please feel free to check any of those out. We will continue to add to them, always looking for partners and sharing content as well there. Ranges. Range has been talked about a little bit, but important. Same thing with going towards conservation and shooting. People need a place to shoot, and we can help with that. We've helped with a lot of state agencies developing ranges. These archery range guides have been updated. Our safety guide has been updated. All these resources are available to states and partners. There's case studies in there. And still, as we continue to work, we talk with people on a pretty regular basis on just providing resources, talking through ideas, all those things. So anything with building new ranges, adding to ranges, programming at ranges, all of that stuff, please let us know. And that's something we are working towards, just growing and growing. We did launch a grant program right as COVID hit, so it was not great timing. And we've suspended it for now, but we've kind of changed directions for ranges and building out more resources, as well as an online course that on our new management system I'll mention in a minute. But these guides are out there, they're available. Many states have used them, and we're always happy to help look at building ranges. Another effort we started last year, since we couldn't travel and be in person, were virtual stakeholder meetings. So we've recorded about 16 of these right now. We will expand on that this year. But all these were meant to do is sit down for about an hour, work with the state agencies, work with our partners, USA Archery, National Field Archery Association, NWTF was on the call, and some other partners within each state, to really just show what's happening in the state and how they can get involved. We brought in and have marketed this to our members to get involved, whether that's retailers or others, and just show what's happening in the state and how they can get involved, so we know more on a smaller community level ways we can work together better. There's always great things happening, but we can always do better on that front. So anybody interested in hosting more of these, I'll be reaching out. If you haven't heard from me yet, to host some more. They're recorded. You all can share them with anybody. We know not everybody on these calls is every stakeholder, but we wanted to start these within that archery realm and get our members involved and start working, get better at that community and state level. And I know some of these links are long. We'll share this, and then they're linked on our website. One quick one we're expanding on this year, but our mentoring resources. A little over a year ago, we partnered with, at the time, QDMA, but National Deer Association, Kentucky, and Georgia. They already have their Field to Fork program, but we put it into a curriculum. We added in some more activities and hands-on lessons. put in our crossbow curriculum and put that together. We also put together some marketing resources and case studies, and we're just going to expand on that. So this fall, we are working on lesson plans and an instructor course through our learning management system online, just to get that information out there more. So we're always looking for more opportunities to partner on things like this and get more of our members involved with what's going on out there and what you all have. Explore bow hunting and bow fishing. If you'll have beyond the trade show, this is probably what you've heard from us. Explore bow hunting has been around for 12 plus years through a multi-state grant as a next step program to Archery in the Schools program. This curriculum's out there. It's 23 activities, originally designed for youth, but we've been using them for adults for years and years, and we've incorporated into our mentoring program. So don't think of it as a youth program anymore. Works great for youth, but adults have been fun. Those that have gone through the instructor program have just as much fun. I know when we did it in Florida, skin knees and grass stains and all that through some of the hands-on activities. So it is a fun hands-on program. Explore bow hunting does not have a lot of shooting activities in it. It's a lot of it's all the skills needed to get up to bow hunting, with the goal then somebody going on a first bow hunt. So bow fishing the same, it's expanding, it's a little bit newer, but we've had more recent conversations around bow fishing. It's a fun social activity. The games and activities in it are social and made for groups. So really fun programs. It's changed a little bit over the years. So traditionally, it's always been implemented through state agencies. So if we work with a state agency, there's kind of that lead contact person, and we've worked through there. We kind of get you all up and running, and then you run with it. It becomes your program. You know, people that are interested are coming to you. They're not coming to us. So that's not going anywhere. That's still just expanding, but we have opened up some digital and instructor workshops. So right now we have an online bow fishing workshop for instructors. We have partnered with the National Field Archery Association to put on an Explore Bow Hunting instructor workshop. And that's, you know, ideally in-person workshops are great. Just like Hunter Ed, you learn a lot more. You can ask questions, you can interact. An instructor would be getting feedback right now instead of talking to a screen at home. So we would always suggest that. But for those that can't, or can't travel, or don't have the time, or the state doesn't have it, that's something we are doing there. We're also expanding with our partners. So like I mentioned with NFAA and their instructor, Scholastic 3D Archery, all their students have now gotten the Explore Bow Hunting Student Handbook. Their instructors have access to the curriculum, and we're only building on that. Same with Salvation Army Outdoors. We've worked with them for years. Isaac Walton Leagues, we've started to work with the past couple of years, always looking for new organizations and partners on this front as well. And like I mentioned, incorporating other programs. So those state agencies that are doing it, you'll hear more from me, and those that are interested, we will keep talking. So kind of jumping over to another section of ATA is our marketing communications. So Allison Jasper is our Senior Director of Marketing Communication. Her contacts there. She's, you know, anything directly I mentioned here, she can answer questions, or I can connect you. Two big things that they do manage, you know, they do everything for marketing communications for our trade show, our education, and out to consumers. So Archery 360 and Bow Hunting 360, Alex mentioned these, but some of the videos on here went to their online platform, but they're all here and for you to use. Archery 360 focused on the recreation and target side, and then Bow Hunting 360 is focused on bow hunting and some bow fishing mixed in there. But it's anything from how-tos to how to shoot in your backyard safely, and how to go into a shop and talk a recurve or a compound, or how to shoot Olympic archery, since that's going on right now. All that's there. The information's there to use. There's even widgets if you want to put it directly on your website, and it updates with the newest articles, videos, and content there. There's social media platforms with all of these. We work with influencers in the industry and states to do, you know, content there as well. And we are always looking for more. We unfortunately lost our social media manager, and we just hired a new one, but with his absence, some of our video content has been stalled, and we are working on that. So if there are video needs that you would want to work together with us for, we are all ears all the time for this kind of stuff. So always looking to partner and work together on those things. I mean, others mentioned multi-state grants. We just put one in for a photo shoot as well, working with some of the AFA regions with the R3 committees. So always looking for that. And one coming up is one we worked with states, but campaigns, content, if you are looking for particular content, please let us know. We have images and videos and content, B-roll as mentioned earlier, we have that as well. So if you're looking for it. One I did want to mention was a program last year that just wrapped up, was a multi-state grant that we worked with Meat Eater on. On paper, it was awesome. It met all the above standards and all that. And I know some on the call were part of this. We had 7 test states, so they had paid advertisement and and then organic coverage to in all 50 states. It was marketed on podcasts, social media, and web banners with Meat Eater. And those are some examples on the screen. And it was to direct license sales, to go buy a license in those states. And then if it wasn't direct in those states, it was across the board. Like I said, on paper, it did really well. In license sales, not so much. There were a lot of considerations to look at, and those are on the screen. We will look at improving those, but really comes down, you all know, the money for a national campaign and funds for that really hindered some things instead of some real targeted ads during some certain times. So we learned a lot from it. The full report's available. So if anybody would like to see the full report, the full images used, where they were put out, and the numbers, we have all that. It was part of the multi-state grant, so that's open, available. Just contact us and let us know. But things like this, we're always looking to try and see what we can do. Another one we did before that was we did this internally with our coming out of our strategic planning a couple years ago. And some of you may have seen this, but it was the Thrill is Knocking campaign. The images on there were just screenshots from the landing page that was used. And it shows there the 3 different pieces that were filmed and created. So the thrill of it, of the challenge, the thrill of competition, and then the thrill of adventure. And going into that, we had our consumer insight study done to develop the campaign. It did really well. We were able to track, on the screen, you can see the percentages and the numbers. We were able to see that, as well as conversion rates of someone walking into a retail shop and how well that did. So it was a really neat look into the full process. And like I said, the full report's out there. Allison would be more than happy to talk more about it, but it showed some success, and all the imagery and videos from this is available. So it's available for you all to use. There were in 15-second, 30-second, and more video content for social media and others. And there were some interesting things coming out of the market research that went into this. And I know it's a couple years old and we've seen more research come out. But a lot of it was pointing to, joining clubs and archery range or archery clubs was a younger demographic, and they wanted to try it because they wanted that camp experience. They wanted the social aspects, the fun, the challenge. And so it was very interesting to see that in the report. And that's what behind the thrill of it, the excitement, the fun, went into this campaign. I've mentioned a lot and quickly, and some of you may have seen a lot of this stuff on our old resource website, and that's that bottom left image. Don't go there anymore. It was behind a wall to see that. We have now started migrating all those resources to a couple different places. The main one being our resource library that is directly on our website. And it's a direct download. It's through our online store, but it's free downloads for members and partners. So a lot of content there. Some of our content is also going to our learning management system. So that's where our stakeholder meetings are. We have marketing courses. We have lots and lots of different things on there, but going to a more formatted approach to some of that content. And then, like Swanny mentioned earlier, the R3 Clearinghouse. A lot of our stuff is going to end up there as well for everybody. This content's there. It's made. We want to get it out there for you all to use. So please do. you can't find something, you have trouble logging in, anything like that, please let me know and we will get you in. But we will continue to add everything to these resource library, as well as the courses and the clearinghouse. Last, to kind of wrap it up, I know I'm throwing a lot at you and there's a lot more that we are working on. Some in the process, some wrapping up that I'm excited to, get out there, but not yet, is our new organization, Bow Hunters United. So back in 2018, when we had our last strategic planning work, we sat down and we looked at the feasibility of an organization only for bow hunting. Not only, but the idea is not to dilute pools of other members. It's working together and providing a welcoming, inclusive platform for bow hunters, new and old. Won't say old, those that have done it for a long time. And then a way for us to directly connect to consumers. So the industry is behind this. We're helping with the launch. It just launched back in October of 2020. So not the best timing for it, but as people are looking for it, and you can see the mission there, and we're developing, we kind of soft launched it back in October. And in a couple months, we're going to have a lot more resources on that website and available to members. But it's a unique organization. It's not meant to take away members from anyone else. It's only meant to build bow hunting, and it aligns with a lot of what we're already doing. It's just another avenue for us to get it out there. So more to come from Bow Hunters United. You'll hear from us. There are going to be new ways we can partner and work together. We are working on resources. So this is resources. Initially, when we launched, we got a lot of questions on where do I go? What do I do? How do I begin? Are there communities near me to begin learning to bow hunt? We are not going to be the ones to do that everywhere. We are not planning on building local chapters like an NWTF or NDA or Rocky Mountain or anyone else. We are just out there to point them in your direction. So we are aggregating a lot of those resources, how to participate in programs that are already out there. We want to connect them with you and you all. We're going to I've already reached out to a lot of you about a mentoring site, or kind of that first site somebody would want to land on your page. We'll be putting a lot of that together. And then we will use that organization to really advocate for bow hunters. We're already advocating a lot for the industry in bow hunting, but this allows us an avenue to really advocate for bow hunters. And we'll do that a lot through partnerships and that action alert system. So brand new organization, a lot to come, new ways to partner with you all, but we're excited to see where it goes and what it allows us to do in new ways, especially with outreach and education. So a lot thrown at you a few minutes early, but our contact's there, my contact, I can direct you to anyone if you need to within the organization or partners, and fill you in on what you're doing, and kind of wrap it up there. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them, but I also know I'm holding you till your next break. So. Lance, I don't see the question box popping up, but it could be me. But if there's anything, let me know.
Yep, there's no questions in there right now.
Okay.
I think you covered it well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Josh. Much appreciated for what you did today, and we appreciate the information. Well, with that, everyone, you get to cut out about 30 minutes early, and that wraps up today's conference, with the exception of the virtual happy hour. I'd like to remind everybody that that'll start at, excuse me one second. That'll start at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. That's in about 2.5 hours. Again, we'll open up with live music. You're encouraged to take a little extra time. You can pour yourself a real drink and join us this evening. For those of you who presented on my panel, Matt, Joanne, Swanny, Nephi, Alex, and Josh, you did an outstanding job, as evidenced by the increase in attendees that we have for this conference rather than a decrease. And so I'm really excited about that. I look forward to seeing everybody again this evening and again in the morning. And thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will talk to you then.